We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My guest is Abigail Lewis of Whole Life Times. Whole Life Times, many issues here. Whole Life Times, probably the preeminent publication in Southern California for progressive ideas on wellness and the environment and exercise and beauty. And the editor-in-chief, Abigail Lewis. Abigail, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you, Joshua. I'm delighted to be here.
Now, you've been involved with Whole Life Times for a long time.
Very long time. I was involved with Whole Life Times starting back in 1989 and was there until 2006, stepped away for several years and went back in 2009.
And Whole Life Times has as its focus what might have been called years ago progressive wellness ideas, but those ideas are now kind of approaching a certain mainstream status.
Many of them have become very mainstream.
Yeah.
You see so many of the ideas that we thought were really leading edge and out there.
Well, and they were leading edge.
Yes, okay.
They were, many of us hoped that they were, and most of them have proved not to be just fashionable, but like solid, like cleaner environment.
Yes.
What are you eating? Are you eating carefully? Exercise like yoga, etc. And those enjoy mainstream status because people got results.
That's right. Because they work, and also because people found that they weren't maybe getting the results that they wanted in other places that they were seeking them. For instance, God bless the medical establishment, and if I broke my leg, I'd be the first person to go to the hospital. But there are some things that you can heal for yourself and do maybe even a better job and a more efficient job taking care of yourself.
Right. Now, when you started Whole Life Times, you came on board, what in the 1980s?
89, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were you in publishing before that?
I had worked for Billboard magazine many years before,
no
and then
kidding.
I'd gone off and done another career entirely, and had a child and wanted to do something that was in a more contained space, so went back to something I was really familiar with and loved.
Were you a rock and roll reporter for Billboard?
I did review a number of wonderful concerts, yes.
Mm-hmm. And you just found Billboard actually is very interesting too. I mean, they're kind of interesting in what they report about and what they have accomplished as a magazine. And then you just decided to move into this because in your own lifestyle, you're moving in this direction?
Absolutely. It was a field I was very interested in. I had moved out to LA from New York, and people would meet me in New York and hear that I was eating things like tempeh, and I would take a walk and meditate on the beach, and they'd say, you need to move to L.A.
Well, I can remember New York in the 60s, even though it's the most important city in the world and the best city in the world for sure, they had very little natural foods activity. I mean, they had the Paradox macrobiotic restaurant, they had the Cauldron macrobiotic restaurant, and they had Brownies, which is there forever. And they had very little going on for natural foods. And for a long time, in my opinion, New York City lagged behind California
It's true.
in wellness for a very long time. And then by the 80s, they certainly picked up steam. But for a long time, man, it wasn't happening there in New York. Not for this.
No, it wasn't. There was a tiny little health food store. There was one little natural foods restaurant. And I'll tell you a funny story. I used to eat at this place, Whole Wheat and Wild Berries, was on West 9th Street.
Oh, I
in
know
the
that
Village.
restaurant. I know it.
Okay.
Was there for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I used to eat there before I moved out here in the 80s. And then I met Real Foods Daily, the founder of Real Foods Daily, when I moved out here, Ann Gentry.
Yes.
And
Ann
she
Gentry.
had worked as a server in whole wheat and wild berries.
Oh, no kidding.
And to show you how far it's come, they have just opened in Terminal 4 at LAX Real Food Daily. So
Right.
now you can get vegan, healthy food
Right.
in the airport.
That's very progressive. By the way, we had Ann on this show.
Oh, you did?
We had
Okay.
Ann, I think, 3 times chatting about Real Foods Daily and also the fact that she was going to be opening at the airport. And that really is a smart move on the part of management of the airport
Absolutely.
to appeal to a traveler who wants better quality food. Not everyone wants that. Some people still want soda. But there's a percentage of people who said, no, we had enough of the soda thing. You know, that was an earlier century. We want healthier stuff that tastes good. And Ann's filling the niche, and that's fantastic.
It is, and I think it is also a nice way to represent our city because there are so many people here who are interested in healthy living and healthy eating. So to come into our airport and see this makes a lot of sense.
It does make sense. It actually just makes very good business sense, I think. And I'm very pleased with the city fathers, whoever is in charge of the airport, because I'm sure there's a lot of money involved. And I think they made a very smart decision. I really believe it was a smart business decision.
And you know what we need next in the airport that San Francisco already has? A yoga room.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, you can go into the yoga room in the San Francisco airport. I forget which terminal it is. And there's mats if you like, and you can just sit in there. And if you just want to be quiet or you want to meditate or you want to do some yoga,
Wow.
it's a
And you can store
wonderful
luggage there,
thing.
too, if need be.
I
I'm just
don't
making a
think
joke
so.
there. Well, actually, no, I did not know that. That
You dropped
also
your other baggage there.
Right. That's other baggage. Right. No, that does sound very good. I did not know that. And so, whole lifetimes. What is the focus today?
Okay, we have a threefold focus. We are interested in integrative health, so that's really the best of the alternative world with the best of the science world, as it were. We also are very interested in sustainability and a green lifestyle. And then the third part is kind of an evolving spirituality. So Thomas More actually has a new book on this out. I haven't seen it yet, but it sounds quite interesting. And it's really about taking things from traditional spirituality and taking things from nature and working it into what's going to work for you and give you some kind of a spiritual foundation, if you so desire.
And you interview them. Is that it when they visit LA, and then you publish stories?
We do some of that, but we do so much by the internet and phone these days. We don't really have to do that much in person. I do Skype interviews, which are kind of fun.
Oh yes, that is interesting.
Yes, it's great because, for instance, I interviewed Deva Pramal and Miten. They are kirtan singers, and they gave me a little tour of the place they were staying in Australia via Skype, and it was fun, delightful.
Within the past 3 or 4 years, have you noticed a major shift in this movement? I mean, for example, even 7 or 8 years ago, there were half as many yoga schools as there are now.
Well, it's certainly grown tremendously, and it certainly keeps growing. And you have people appearing on Oprah every week talking about the things that we've been writing about. I used to say 20 years ago, I said, if we really do what we're trying to do, if we really fulfill our intention, we're going to put ourselves out of business. And we haven't put ourselves out of business, but my hope was that so many of those ideas that we embraced would be taken up by the mainstream, would reach a broader audience, and that we'd all get healthier and more centered. And it's happening, but we've got a long way to go.
But it is actually happening.
Yes, it is. I think it
actually
is.
happening.
What do you think?
I never envisioned the wellness ideas that many of us take for granted now as getting this big. Never in a million years. When I used to work for Ann Wigmore at Hippocrates in Boston in the early 70s, I was Ann's assistant. And my father, who was a podiatrist and had friends who were pharmacists, and he said, Joshua, the natural foods ideas are going to go the way pharmacies went. You had independent pharmacies, and then they all went out of business because the chains picked up pharmacy. And my father said the small natural food stores will go the way of the dinosaur. It'll be big natural food stores. And my father had a vision that I did not have. My dad was right, and I myself couldn't see it. And I'm actually very proud of my dad for that. You know, he really saw, no. Here's an analogy, Joshua. The pharmacy, the big pharmacy thing, the small natural food store to the large natural food store. And I thought, great. And same thing with these ideas that you write about so nicely in Whole Life Times. Exercise. I mean, there are so many marathons being run now worldwide that there's actually considered a glut of marathons.
No kidding.
Yes, there are so many marathons but there's so many participants. But even so, the marathon participants per event is down because there are so many to choose from.
No kidding.
Yes, that's
Okay.
very interesting.
Well, you know, here in LA, we have so many yoga festivals that a couple have really struggled.
Right.
Same kind of thing.
Well, we have Bhakti Fest,
Yes.
and that one seems to be they seem to be doing very nicely. There are a lot of them promoting it, and you know, we'll see.
We have Moksha,
Uh-huh.
which just moved up to Topanga Canyon this year. Very successful, very pure in its yoga intention. Then we had Tadasana, which hopefully will come back. It was a lovely one down at the beach. And they're all up and down the coast.
Were there any stories about wellness that you're particularly proud of breaking?
What pops to mind suddenly is kombucha.
Ah, kombucha.
We were the first real venue to write about kombucha. Nobody had ever heard of it, and I can't remember the woman's name, introduced us to kombucha, and I went out and bought all the equipment and started growing mushrooms on top of my refrigerator, and that was really the first time kombucha had hit the airwaves, as it
And
were.
what year was that? Early 90s?
Yes, I would say early 90s. They kind of all run together. You know how it is, Joshua.
No, but that is nice to be able to, you know, find out an idea, think it has merit, promote it, and then 15, 20 years later, it has legs. It just took a long time.
Well, I just saw a mainstream movie recently. It's called Touchy Feely, and it talks about Reiki. Can you imagine talking about Reiki 20 years ago in a film? It was considered so woo-woo. People used to invite us to give them copies of Whole Life Times to put on the table when they wanted to show how weird people were.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, no
So
kidding.
we
That
showcased
was
in a couple
product
of movies.
placement, I see.
Yes.
Because I know that in many Woody Allen films of, 15, 20 years ago, in every film he'd managed to work in a joke about the Krishnas.
Uh-huh.
And I always thought, okay, that's great. I mean, how many Krishnas actually are there? A couple thousand? At the time, there were very few. Edsel Ford, by the way, one of the Ford heirs, was a Krishna.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They had a strange bunch of different people involved with that. That seems to have kind of largely been our generation's phenomena. The new generation doesn't seem to have embraced it the way we did.
Well, but think about this. What is it that they're chanting at all these kirtan festivals and these kirtan evenings? There are yoga studios in Santa Monica that have kirtan evenings once a week. And
Right.
what is one of their main chants? Hare Krishna.
Right. And the kirtan music, which, by the way, is very lovely, to some extent, it's kind of what we had 20, 25 years ago, the New Age music, which was also the butt of much jokes. And the kirtan music is kind of a little bit of an offshoot of that. It's kind of a similar genre in that it's not Chuck Berry, it's not Chuck Berry, but
No, I
but it's
think that's
popular
safe to
music.
say.
It's popular music.
Yes.
And some people do enjoy it. And it's really like the New Age music to some extent. That's not a put down. That's just an observation.
Well, in fact, there's some crossover. Are you familiar with Donna DeLore?
Yes, she was on the show.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, then she was a backup singer with Madonna for many
was.
years,
She
and
was a
now
backup
she's
singer,
singing
yes.
kirtan.
And her dad produced Glenn Campbell by the time I get to Phoenix, by the way.
Oh,
Throw
I
a little
didn't know
plug out
that.
there to her.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. The dad was big.
And
Glenn Campbell's two biggest hits, he did them. He was the producer.
So it was in the family for her.
It's in the family, yes.
Okay. Well, and then Krishna Das, he had been in popular music, rock music. Miten of Deva Premal and Miten, he had been a rock musician. So a lot of people have crossed over for various reasons, and
Right.
they bring elements of that other music to play. And
Now you have Krishna Das here.
yes,
And he is very much involved with the same guru that
Ram Dass,
Ram Dass has.
Neem Karoli Baba.
Albert. And he's very proud of that association. And of course, Richard Alpert, Ram Dass, is possibly the preeminent spiritual teacher when we were in our teens, 20s, 30s. I mean, was he not the preeminent person?
Well, he was definitely one of the first to really. He had that book, Be Here Now, that was.
Which was a phenomenally, not only a bestseller, but I remember as a teenage boy reading that book and thinking, wow, this is great.
Yeah. Well, it's very simple. I mean, nobody's really said it better. Be here now. There's 3 little words that say so much. Who has said it better in 1,000 words?
He said it very well. And also, the thing I like about Richard Alpert is he signed away all the rights to that book.
To the Seva Foundation?
Oh, he signed away all the rights. He just, the whole idea of voluntary simplicity, of, he was a very wealthy young man. His father was a railroad executive. He gave away all his money. Now, that is a very gutsy thing to do. And he actually did it.
Yeah. Well, he's a beautiful person. I have great respect for Ram Dass. I've interviewed him a couple of times and love to do so again. I just got to get myself over to Hawaii to do it this time.
Yeah, he's very impressive. Timothy Leary wrote his biography, his autobiography, which I read, which I found very interesting and gives you depth about him that you just didn't know as a teenage boy, seeing him in film or seeing him being interviewed on Dick Cavett or something. And he seemed a little jealous of Richard Alpert, Ram Dass, in later years. And he said of him that he's everyone's favorite Unitarian minister, which was rather a nasty but funny.
What
but
my mother would
nasty,
call a left-handed compliment.
a left-handed compliment. But it was very interesting. I guess he was somewhat unhappy that Richard Alpert, Ram Dass, continued to have favorable press, continued to be a current thinker, whereas Timothy Leary, to a large extent, was a relic of the 60s.
Well, kind of, but he really got into technology in a way that Ram Dass never did.
No.
So he was kind of on the leading edge another way, but there's one big difference. I interviewed him as well.
Timothy Leary.
Yeah. And
Was that back in the 80s?
No, 90s.
Oh, really?
And
Because he's been dead now for a while.
yes, he has, but not 20 years. Okay. And I found Ram Dass to be such a nice, warm person. He was like the uncle that you just love to talk to, who makes you feel like you're his, I don't know if you know this word, it's a Yiddish word, mishpucha. And Timothy Leary was a little bit acerbic and a little off-putting. So people, Ram Dass is the person people love to love. And I think when it's kind of like siblings almost, they almost had a sibling rivalry maybe. And Timothy was the not so nice brother and consequently was perhaps not as well liked.
And also, the two of them, when they were at Harvard in the early 60s, they thought that they would make a lot of money on LSD. They thought a lot of money was to be made. They never.
Well, they were right.
That's right. They never envisioned that the U.S. government would step in and crush that. And Timothy Leary was very concerned about money, especially because when he wasn't teaching at the university level, he had a scuffle for many years to earn any money. And as a young man, he's from Massachusetts, his father was a successful dentist. But they had a relative who was very wealthy who promised to leave the parents a lot of money. And Timothy Leary's parents counted on that. But by the time the relative passed away, he did leave money to Timothy Leary's parents, but he'd spent most of it, so there was very little money that was left to them. And Timothy Leary's father was so distraught because he had been counting on this money that he literally abandoned his family, abandoned Massachusetts, went to sea as a waiter on cruise ships. And every once in a while when he was drunk, he would call his son or ex-wife. And Timothy Leary recounts this in the book. And that, I guess, can make you somewhat unhappy with some stuff, that kind of very crazed early background.
Yeah, it certainly would bring up some abandonment issues. But it's kind of interesting what you said, going back to the relative leaving the money. Where do you think all that relative's money went?
No, he spent it before his death.
Well, he probably spent a lot of it on his health care.
Very, very possibly.
Yeah, because we all know that how much is spent on health care in the last year of people's lives these days. And
that's very true.
Yeah.
And do you think that Whole Life Times has been on the forefront in these issues? Are you proud of your editorial content and of your articles?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we're the only magazine in our niche that really does serious content and writes real stories, and we do some real reporting. We can't really be on the leading edge of it because we only come out every 2 months. But we write about things that people are really, really interested in. They want to know what's in their water. They want to know what's happening as a result of Fukushima. They want to know how to feed themselves and plant. We have a story in this issue. It was October, November, about planting in the median dividers downtown LA.
Yes.
So people are...
That's progressive.
Yes. People need this information. Where else are they going to get it?
And also, I do like your articles, and I do like the graphics, and I do like the content, and I like the consistency of all those elements. I mean, I think when I read this magazine, I think, oh, I'm enjoying this magazine.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I was sort of waiting for the but. It sounded like
there was no but. No,
Okay,
no. I really like the content.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, we love to write about what people want to read about, too. So anybody out there in listener land who has an idea or subject that seems interesting, write to us.
Have you done much with the raw foods movement over the years?
We've done some. We actually featured Matthew Kenny, who started this whole restaurant and cooking school in food preparation school in Santa Monica. We had him on our cover several years ago before he even got to LA. He was in Oklahoma. And we regularly feature recipes and cookbooks about raw foods. And we have a story in our current issue by David Wolf, who is a big raw foods proponent.
Dave Wolf is very well known these
Yes.
days, has been for more than 15 or so years, yes.
Yes.
He's possibly the preeminent raw food personality, is he not?
Yeah, he's definitely right up there. He's very well known. I think Matthew Kenny is making a name for himself, too. There are other people. Giuliano, I can't remember his last name, who had Giuliano's Raw restaurant. It was the first raw restaurant in Santa Monica, and I think it's gone now, but he was a pioneer.
Well, now there are 50 of them, which is, I mean, there's a lot of them now.
Yeah, yeah.
It's interesting. This concept has just really caught on.
Well, and it can in Southern California because we have the warm weather, so
Yes,
people
that's true.
don't worry about, even last night I went out to a business dinner and there were a couple of choices, and it was cold. I wanted something warm.
Right. Right. No, for sure, but it's cold, yeah. And last night it was actually very cold, so.
Yes.
Abigail, how do we pick up a copy of Whole Lifetimes?
We're at all kinds of places. We're at lots of natural food stores.
Like Erewhon?
Yes. We're always at Erewhon.
Erewhon's
Follow
great.
Your Heart. We are at some of the Whole Foods. Unfortunately, we're not at all of the Whole Foods because people started making a mess with the magazines.
Oh, really?
People would put down their flyers and not ask permission, and
I see.
It's not the store's job to keep track of the free magazines, so they just kind of got rid of everything.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the story. I did not know. I was kind of wondering. Okay.
Yeah. But we're at lots of health centers. We're at doctors' offices, libraries, colleges, bookstores. Yay, independent bookstores.
Yay. A couple of those around.
Yeah.
Do you also have any books at any magazines at Loyola Marymount?
I would have to check, probably. We're at most of the universities, so.
Because they're starting a master's level program in yoga studies.
They're very progressive over there at
Yeah.
Loyola Marymount. You wouldn't necessarily expect it because it's a religious-based school, but
Right.
they've been very progressive with yoga. They have a whole kind of sustainable yoga program going on. I can't remember the fellow's name, but
Chappell? Is
Pardon?
it Chappell? Christopher Chappell?
Yes, yeah. And so he's been doing that for a number of years because
He
we
has.
talked to him years ago about that.
I think he's been around since 85, actually.
Well, longer than I have. so
85 is
there
a
you go.
long time already at
Yes.
this point, yeah.
So they've been definitely on the forefront. Marymount has some good things going on, interesting programs, and I'm very grateful to Marymount Loyola Marymount, because we had so many wonderful interns from there
Oh, really?
over the years. Yes, several of whom I've stayed in touch with. One of whom is now the executive editor of a dental magazine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they've gone on to do good things.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do any of your colleagues from your Billboard days ever call you?
No, I've totally lost touch with all of them. Well, I had another career for 20 years interim, so
Oh, between that, yeah.
maybe not that many, but quite a long time in the middle.
We had one fellow on this show who used to be the press agent for Grand Funk Railroad.
Oh,
And he was a lot of laughs, really. He was great. He was great.
yeah, it reminds me of Almost Famous.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly. Very, very much like Almost Famous. Well, Abigail Lewis, it's been fantastic. Whole Lifetimes is the magazine, and I recommend picking up a copy at your local natural food store and bookstore. And you're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. We'll be right back after these important messages.
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for a new show right here on LA Talk Live, The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Josh Lane and Dr. Hans Kugler of Here's to Your Health, in conjunction with A4M, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, invite you to attend the 21st Annual World Congress on Anti-Aging Medicine, December 12th through 15th at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas. Check it out at worldhealth.net. That's worldhealth, one word, .net. And while you're there, sign up for the free longevity newsletter. Just look for the bouncing red ball. At worldhealth.net, also print out a page about the Las Vegas Congress and pass it along to your doctors. More than 3,500 healthcare professionals will convene at the Las Vegas Congress, where they will teach and demonstrate with hundreds of exhibitors about every anti-aging modality. Be sure to attend the World Congress on Anti-Aging Medicine, December 12th through 15th at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas, presented by the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. Visit worldhealth.net for more details. The 21st Annual Congress on Anti-Aging Medicine, proud sponsors of Here's to Your Health with Josh Lane and LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Elena, inviting you to join me every Wednesday at noon for Elena's Beauty Talk and more, exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My guest has been a guest on Here's to Your Health before, Akeem Nowak, author of Infectious. Akeem is I'm going to read this, international authority on leadership presence.
Yes.
His book is fun. He's worked with major corporations around the globe. Flew in last night from Miami International Airport. Welcome to Here's to Your Health.
It's great to be here. Hi, Josh.
Akeem, happy to have you here. And you just recently, you fly all over the globe working with major corporations.
Yes.
And you teach executives how to be more effective.
Well, I'm interested in helping people to better connect and to connect more deeply. Because I know when we connect more deeply, people, first of all, life is more fun. But professionally speaking, folks really want to work for us. They want to show up for us. So there's actually an incredible benefit to the business when we're able to connect. And that's what I'm passionate about.
Right. That does seem like common sense, but only after you know it, right?
Well, and it's funny, I tell you, since you mentioned flying, I was working in Shanghai, China, all of last week. And it's interesting, the deepest level on which we connect, I think, is the energetic level. And that can be very mysterious to people, but I write about qi, which is the Chinese term for energy in the book. Mm-hmm. So I was in front of my Chinese audience, and suddenly I talked about qi. And instead of seeing a blank face, there was this big smile. And they were all nodding. And I realized, wow, they all get it. And that was really awesome because that's the core of everything, I think.
And China is such an important power now, such an amazingly important power. So are they picking up many of these progressive ideas? Obviously, your book is progressive in nature.
Right.
And so now their business leadership and the government leadership has decided these ideas have merit?
Well, because I'm originally from Germany, so I'm an international spirit, and I think folks in China, as everywhere else, want to succeed internationally. Mm-hmm. So we look at different levels at which we connect with people, and that really interests them. And that is harder to do in a second language. And I'm happy that I was able to talk about qi because it's easy to throw that stuff out the window because you want to learn all the surface skills. But in a culture like China, which is a very spiritual culture, I want to encourage my clients to embrace what's their ancient tradition because that leads to the really deep way of being with people, which is awesome, you know.
What language are you speaking in?
I speak in English. I work without a translator, but we have a bunch of the materials translated. A lot of my clients are Chinese who work for international corporations, and it worked really well.
Because every culture has their own worldview. Yeah. That's a broad statement. And since you teach people how to communicate, was there anything that you noticed working with Chinese leadership that caught you a little bit by surprise? Or was there anything that they really latched onto that you thought, oh, they kind of got that concept?
Well, I'm going to answer you in a different way. I'm not interested in acculturating anybody to anything. So I talk about the idea of culture switching. For example, if you have a certain Chinese style, honor that, celebrate it, but have fun with working in a different style in a different culture. I want to tell you a funny little story. I was coaching a German guy who was a German GM, general manager for a big international corporation. And the American colleagues kept complaining. They said he is just, he's not expressive enough, he's too dry, and when he speaks, he pisses people off. So this was the comment. And we were laughing, and I said to him, I think they just want you to be more American. And
right.
we laughed about what that is.
Even to me, that sounds that.
Yeah, but I said to him, I said, are you willing to have some fun? You know, when in your next executive meeting, just act a little more American, like whatever you think that is. And we spoke afterwards, and I said, how did it go? And he said, I had a fantastic time. But then he said, and you know what? Being more American works well with my German team also. And I loved that because it allowed him to be more expansive, right. So that was great.
Yeah, that really does sound like a cultural difference, doesn't it? That I think most of us think, that does sound like a truism.
Yeah.
Yes. The Germans might be considered somewhat more austere, possibly.
It's a stereotype, but there are many truths to it. So, yeah.
And in China, what did you notice about the leadership that they what ideas did they really like from you?
Ironically, some of what I talk about in the book, like a deeper level at which we do or do not connect, is our ability to relate to our own personal power and to relate to the power of other people. For example, like in this interview right now, I am the guest. I'm considered an authority on something that gives me some power, but you're the host. And your power is, if you like me, you can invite me again, right?
That's right.
So I have to figure out how I relate to that.
Right.
If I overplay it, it's going to look like I'm sucking up to you, which is not cool. But it's that kind of stuff. That's the dance under the surface and the conversation about power and breaking it down into power sources they found really interesting. Because especially in hierarchical cultures, which China is still more hierarchical, to play well with the power of another person without giving up your own if we figure that out, we become immediately more impactful, you know.
That seems like a very important concept. Could you flesh that out a little bit?
Yeah, give you an example. I was on a phone call just yesterday. We're helping the national sales team for, this is actually a French pharmaceutical company, to prepare for the sales meeting. And a classic power thing there is a sales rep is talking to a physician. The physician has a lot of position power and authority. The sales rep has what we call expertise power. Now, y'all know it's very easy to crumble in front of the position power of physician. They can be very intimidating and daunting. So part of what we're exploring is how do you celebrate the position power that the physician has without disappearing yourself, and at the same time celebrate what you offer, which is not position power, but expertise power, and the specific techniques that you can learn. But the moment you understand that you are in the middle of a power game, then you play it consciously, and I play it in a good way, not in a manipulative way, you know.
Well, I've always noticed that pharmaceutical reps from at least 15 to 20 years ago were always the best-looking women who went to Smith and other great schools, and they were slim, and they were smart, and they knew their subject, and they just they could run circles around everybody.
I see
really
how
impressed.
excited you're getting as you talk about this.
I was impressed by that. Being a natural foods guy, I'm a natural foods guy.
Right.
And I like to think highly of my profession
Sure.
and my peers and the books I've read and the people I respect. But when I got to look at some of these pharmaceutical reps, I thought to myself, wow, these women are good. I just was like, I thought, okay, I'm a little bit of a provincial here. I just didn't realize that. I don't have much to do with pharmaceuticals. But when I met a bunch of them, I thought, okay, boy, I get it.
Well, and part of it is, if I can relate it to a broader conversation, sometimes people who sell anything have to sell a product that isn't that great. And they know they know that there's competition that's equally good or better. Right. So the tipping point then is what I call your personal credibility. That can have to do with your appearance, with your sex appeal, but many other things. And so how you manage that consciously is actually something to really take seriously.
Yes, it is.
I've often coached companies who have a fading brand, but the new brand hasn't come up yet, and you still got to sell the fading brand. So the more the brand is fading, the more your personal credibility has to override everything.
Right. That seems like a spot-on concept, right?
Yeah.
And so then what do I do if I have a fading brand of X? What do I do for you as the retailer who's buying, or the product, or the physician who's buying the product?
Well, number one is the stuff that you feel strong about your brand, you need to fully own it. And the rest is your ability to establish a meaningful relationship with the other person rather than a fluffy one will be the differentiator. And I'm stressing that because, and I'm a big social media guy, so I love that, but social media encourages quick connections, but business success comes with deep connections.
Yes.
So the personal credibility is enhanced if I'm able to get to the deeper connection, which is some of the skills I'm really interested in.
And I get to those deeper connections. Is it through what? We went to the same university. We go to the same church. No, seriously. What are some of the deeper connections?
I love that you brought that up because the common understanding is that the deeper connection comes through finding common ground. That's actually, to me, the most superficial of connections. Like, hey, at my next guest, Melanie, when I was talking about that, she went to NYU. I went to NYU. That's cool. But what the heck does that really mean? I really learned this lesson in the 90s. I was teaching teenagers in New York how to be mediators, and we would often talk about music, and they were all into hip hop and rap, which I wasn't into at all. So there was no common ground on music, and I always felt like I should like the same music they did, but I didn't. But where we got to instead, which is the deeper conversation, is I would ask them, so what do you like about hip hop? Which is the deeper thing. How does it make you feel? What does it do to you, your body, your spirit? Then I could talk about my music, which was new age music at the time, and say, this is how it makes me feel. So the reframing was, we talk about our shared love of music, which is much deeper than we both like the same music. So that's the deeper connection, and that gets us to something that goes to the heart, and that's the deeper part.
One of your colleagues, Helen Turnbull,
yes,
mentioned that all of us are guilty of finding that the most competent person that we like the best is really the most like us. I'm paraphrasing Helen.
No, she's absolutely right.
And I thought, well, after Helen said that, I thought, oh, that makes perfect sense. I never actually thought of it as a concept, but I thought, yes, I think that's kind of the way we are. So if I am a pharmaceutical rep and you are a physician, I establish common ground by, I mean, there are many things involved here. You know, I don't want to pick on the pharmaceutical guys. We could move to some other profession. You know, so
well, but you're describing how a lot of us operate, which is out of our comfort zone. But life becomes more interesting once we get out of it. So last summer, I was spending some time with a bunch of Gestalt psychologists, which is an old school psychology, and I didn't know much about it, but there's a term that I use that I love. They said is we grow by dancing on our personal edge, and I love
that's
that.
very nice.
I love that phrase.
that's kind of 60s.
It's
kind of
60s, but
kind of a
you know,
thing.
you and I have been around long enough to love the
Been around for a
60s, right?
Yes.
So that's a concept that I play with my clients. Like the moment instead of playing at the center, which is safe, the center will always be there. Why not dance on the personal edge? Because that's when we discover the unknown, and that's when conversations get juicy. So instead of encouraging you to talk about how much you love golf, and there's nothing wrong with that, I would say, what risks will you take about the stuff that you normally don't talk about? And talk about that and see what happens. You know, to give you a very specific example. And usually some magical stuff happens when we do that.
But if I was to talk about personal stuff, wouldn't I really choose to do that with friends rather than business colleagues? Because with business colleagues, I have something to sell, they have something they want to buy. So that's why everyone talks about football and golf and tennis, because I don't want to offend you because I'm trying to sell you this antibiotic, and you could buy 6 or other antibiotics from different brands. But if you were my friend, then we could talk about theater or books or whatever. It's different. It's different. Personal friendships are different from business friendships.
They're not that different, actually.
Really?
I'm a...
Well, just your expertise, okay.
I have a zillion stories swirling in my mind as you were talking right now. So the moment I take a personal risk and reveal something unexpected, I give you permission to do the same thing. Let me give you a specific example. I practice Hinduism, so I practice non-traditional religion. For many years, I used to think, I'm not going to talk about that at a business dinner. But if the conversation goes there, I have no problems mentioning it now. I don't have a yearning need to talk about it and let you know about it. But why the heck shouldn't I talk about it? Well, every time I mention it, it opens the door to a rich conversation. And I don't care what you practice. So you don't have to practice what I practice, but the conversations are always interesting. Mm-hmm. I mentioned the German GM who I coached. This was an aha moment for him. He was going to another big executive meeting in Thailand with his team, and the day before he went, his wife had a serious car accident, like serious. And he went there and he said, I just couldn't concentrate. I was horrible. I was worried about my wife all the time. And during the breaks, I would run and check with her. And I asked him, did you let people know? He said, well, I told 1 or 2 people, but I didn't, it didn't feel appropriate to let everybody know. I said, number one, these are all Americans who probably would welcome hearing it. And you would realize you probably will get a lot of support if you let people know. And he realized, well, of course, I make life so much harder by not letting people know that the reality is my wife had a serious accident. And people want to love us and support us, but we have to allow them in. So it's interesting to look at the little boundaries we have created for ourselves. And I believe it. I believe in boundaries. There's stuff I'm not going to tell you, and I don't like people who tell me everything. I want to run from them. So that's not the answer either.
Well, when people who maybe business colleagues tell you everything, don't you kind of have the insight that telling everybody everything, not just you, they tell the dry cleaner, they tell everybody everything, and you think, well, why are you doing that, telling everybody all your stuff?
Well, it's the point is when they tell everybody everything, what they're telling you means nothing, right? So it's meaningless because it has nothing to do with you. So it doesn't establish a connection. It's just somebody who has an inordinate need to fill up a lot of space, and I want to run from you.
Right.
Yeah.
But as you are a business coach, there are certain things that in business it's not appropriate to talk about. Am I not correct? In business, we kind of focus on, I'm going to try to sell you a Mercedes, and I want you to buy several thousand of them, for the university system or for the police department or whatever. And we want to focus on how this Mercedes will help you and the police department.
Well, but you're talking about very concrete selling situations
Yes.
now. The majority of business internationally happens actually in the long business dinners you have, where we have social time with people, where you have to take some more risks. Like, I'll give you another example of the kind of conversation you hear all the time. I sit over a business dinner and people talk about their families, and usually you hear lots of happy family stories. Statistically, we know that every other person is miserable in their marriage, is going to get divorced. That's reality. But at a business dinner, everybody has a happy family. Now, I don't want to hear about all your marital troubles, but the people that I'll never forget this conversation. This is one of the best business dinners I had. And this conversation was initiated by a fellow from India, which is a conservative culture. And he was somebody who was very much communicated by the book. But over dinner, he said, my 12-year-old son is coming to me and is asking questions about sex. And he said, I don't know how to answer it. It feels very uncomfortable. And that opened the door to somebody else at the table talking about the moment when her teenage daughter came to her at 16 and wanted to talk about sex. And she said, I was happy to have this conversation until she told me she had already been active for 3 months. So people took a lot of risks, and that was an enjoyable conversation because it was real. And why not talk about that? And obviously, everybody's still self-censored. We don't tell you everything. But we all want to connect.
That sounds like a good evening out with colleagues, because if people tell you something that
and I want to say, and we weren't drunk.
Right.
No, we didn't.
That's
We
good.
weren't just hanging out at the bar.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because sometimes you're drinking, you think, oh my God, I
Right.
said that. When people do take risks that are well received, it does enliven the conversation.
Yes.
It really does enliven the conversation. It reminds me of an old Rodney Dangerfield joke. He said he and his wife, speaking about marital stuff, they're down to sex, like once a month. But that's okay because he knows 2 guys she cut out 100%. And that also, by the way, is an anti-women joke. That's from my father's generation, kind of anti-women jokes. Yeah. I've discovered that the anti-women jokes, kind of in our generation, kind of subsided quite a lot. Have you noticed that? It's like humor changes, and the anti-women joke, which was very popular in the 50s, etc., seems to have kind of gone away.
I agree with you. Yes, and that's a good thing.
That's probably a very good thing.
Yeah.
And now that you're doing, let's talk about China, because China's in the news so much, and there's so much problems with pollution in China that it's been making the news that a lot of executives say, no, our team doesn't want to go anymore.
This is my 4th trip to Shanghai, and I've been told they've gotten worse. And for 5 days, it was magnificently beautiful. And the last 2 days, when it came in, I have never.
You were just there just the past week.
I was just there last week.
Right.
Last Thursday and Friday, I have never seen anything like it. You can stand on the Bund, which is the big promenade in Shanghai, and look to Pudong, the other side of the river. It's the middle of the day, and you cannot see it. You just cannot see it. You cannot look across the river and see what's there. It was stunning.
Was it scary?
It's funny when you are a guest, you have the luxury of always knowing I'm going to be out of here in a couple of days. So you enjoy it perversely,
right.
But the air didn't smell good. And I can see why people wouldn't want to live there. In that sense, it is scary.
And because people, especially in upper management who you work with, everyone is so well trained now, so well educated, so well traveled, so affluent.
Yeah.
They won't put up with that anymore, will they? They won't put up with pollution. They just will not.
No, and what happens is in Asia, people will go to Hong Kong or they'll go to Singapore, or cities that don't have the same level of pollution but have a comparable lifestyle. So people just, I think if the Chinese government has to figure that one out, for business reasons and for health reasons.
And do you think that, given what you know, having been there 4 times just recently, that they make a real effort?
I cannot predict what they will do.
No,
it's a great question. I have no idea. I really don't. My sense is when city left Shanghai with 22 million people.
22 million
22
people?
million with high rises on a scale that we don't even know in this country. every city in the United States looks provincial compared to Chinese cities.
Really?
Absolutely, because you feel like you're in a sci-fi movie because these high-rise canyons that go on for miles, and then you realize it's this many people, and then it gets really daunting. And the smog was going on for miles. It was going on to the airport. I mean, for a 30-mile drive, it didn't stop. So I would be overwhelmed if I had to fix that.
Right. It's obviously a very, very big problem.
Yeah.
It's a very big problem. Let's talk about something a little bit lighter.
Sure.
Okay.
So we're going to talk about the pharma reps again?
We talk about, yes, I'm enamored of them. Tell me some of the things that you are now teaching that you weren't maybe teaching 10 years ago to your executives. You were originally an acting coach. You're an acting coach.
Well, every executive I coach has taken psychological profiles and assessments that give them an idea of how they like to act. And the more I work with them, the less I like these assessments because they give people a very fixed idea of who they are. There are a lot of them out there. And so I am, because I come from the acting world, I'm interested in giving people a different language or looking at themselves. I don't care what your profile says. I'm interested in helping you explore your personal range. There's a range beyond the profile. That's the you that you don't know yet. Mm-hmm. And we get there by taking small risks and experimenting. I'm also a great believer in the word muscle memory. And muscle memory comes through repetition, and something becomes second nature, and it actually liberates us. To give you the example of, if you learn to play a piece of piano, for example, if you know to play it so well that you don't have to worry about where your hands go anymore, then you play it automatically, which is the real experience becomes the artistic expression of it. Right. You don't worry about the mechanics. So with everybody I coach as well is if we can get to the muscle memory part where certain things happen effortlessly, then we can surrender to the artistry, which is the connection with people in the moment. And then business and life becomes so much sweeter. And so that's the door I want to walk you through. And I know this sounds abstract now, but in my book, I talk about 4 levels of connection, about the conversational level, the power level, the intent level, and the energy level, which is where we started the conversation. And there are very specific things you can learn at each level to go deeper. And so my firm bias is that if we connect more deeply, life is more fun and also much more successful. And that conversation I wouldn't have had 10 years ago. So that's part of what I figured out for myself along the way, and from being inspired by other people.
And now you teach that, and now the way you just described it was very clear, and it makes perfect sense. Is that kind of a happening concept now? Is that a concept people kind of just agree with?
Well, part of my job is to give you language that you can understand, that people all over the world can understand. Here's some language that I've been using this year that people get all over the world, and this has been inspired by a woman named Amy Cuddy, who's a professor at Harvard Business School, and she does research on influencing. And I love her research because she works with people, fellows all over the world, because a lot of research is Western biased, and it's culturally biased. But she talks about this very simple concept, and everybody, I talk about in China, I just talk about in France, everybody gets it, that when we're in front of another person, like I'm in front of you right now, there are 2 things we check out to see whether we want to follow you. We check out your competence, meaning do you know what you're doing? And we check out your warmth. Can we connect to you? And she says the ideal leaders have a perfect balance of warmth and competence. And she says if we lead primarily with competence but lack warmth, people may respect us, but at some point they start resenting us. If we lead heavily with warmth, but are perceived to lack competence, people will like us, but at some point they feel sorry for us.
Oh, yeah.
And when you look at this, if you look at our political leaders in this country, the political situation is so sad. There are very few who have a balance of warmth and competence. You can't find them. It's funny that we're talking about this the week after Nelson Mandela passed away. I was working in France in September, and we had the warmth and competence conversation, and my French colleague said, so who do you think is a good example? And then one said, I think Nelson Mandela is. And I said, that's a really good example. And what I like about the warmth competence conversation, there are things we can do to energize our warmth more. And if we lack competence, we can do stuff like go to school and learn skills. But what Cuddy says, and this is globally true, in case of doubt, lead with warmth. And that sounds so obvious, like everything I'm saying. But I'd say 80% of the folks I coach don't know how to lead with warmth.
Well, Nelson Mandela is possibly the only international figure who might fit that category, spending many years in prison, and then when he got out of prison, he didn't proceed to, steal from the treasury. He tried to run a clean government,
Right.
and he wasn't vindictive on people who, had committed atrocities. I mean, he really tried to push it forward. And South Africa today is probably in better shape because of him, but he's possibly the only one that most of us could agree with is the guy.
Well, I'm on a, since we've been so joking about gender and women, the example that Amy Cuddy mentions as an American politician, and she's not around anymore, was, she said, Ann Richards, Governor Ann Richards from
Ann
Texas.
Richards.
And that's a great example, and I would say because of gender education, women have the chance to have a much better balance of warmth and competence than men at senior levels, as long as women own the warmth part and see it as a strength and asset.
And Ann Richards was well liked as governor of Texas. Was she a skillful legislator? Was that why Ann Richards was liked?
I think there was a passion, a fervor. You didn't feel like she was a bullshitter. She was real. I like the term of just being. What does it mean for you to be real? That conversation with people is interesting. These are all different frames for getting at the idea of how we show up. So I don't know enough about her political accomplishments, but I know in terms of what she embodied, she definitely projected warmth and competence.
And also, whenever you choose someone like a political figure, maybe it also shows our bias. Maybe I shouldn't be talking for you, as progressive or liberals, because people who are terribly conservative back in the 80s and 70s didn't like Nelson Mandela. And they thought apartheid was a great thing, The reactionaries thought it was a great thing. So they, if I had them on the show today, might not say, oh, no, we didn't like Nelson Mandela. So there is a bias that we do like him. Am I not right?
It's about the politics, but it's really, I'm talking, and this is what I like about the research I just quoted and the work I'm doing all over the world. In the end, nobody really connects with us just because we're smart, because smart is an expression of competence, is because there is this other human side, what Amy Cuddy calls the warmth. And to me, warmth has energy behind it, has lots of factors to it. And yes, Gandhi had that, and Mandela had it. And as a coach, I know these things can be activated, which is what I'm really interested in,
Well, Keith Nowak, this has been a very interesting conversation. The book is called Infectious, and I can get it on Amazon and local bookstores.
Yes, it's around, easily found.
It's been very much fun. Thank you for being a guest today on Here's to Your Health. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. We'll be right back, so please stay tuned after these important messages.
The American Heart Association's Heart Walk is coming. Bring your family, bring your friends, bring your coworkers. Help yourself and those around you to live longer, healthier lives. Form a team today and walk to help the American Heart Association defeat heart disease and stroke, two of the nation's leading killers. For more information, visit heartwalk.org.
Josh Lane and Dr. Hans Kugler of Here's to Your Health, in conjunction with A4M, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, invite you to attend the 21st Annual World Congress on Anti-Aging Medicine, December 12th through 15th at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas. Check it out at worldhealth.net. That's worldhealth, one word, .net. And while you're there, sign up for the free longevity newsletter. Just look for the bouncing red ball. At worldhealth.net, also print out a page about the Las Vegas Congress and pass it along to your doctors. More than 3,500 healthcare professionals will convene at the Las Vegas Congress, where they will teach and demonstrate with hundreds of exhibitors about every anti-aging modality. Be sure to attend the World Congress on Anti-Aging Medicine, December 12th through 15th at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas, presented by the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. Visit worldhealth.net for more details. The 21st Annual Congress on Anti-Aging Medicine, proud sponsors of Here's to Your Health with Josh Lane and LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Testing one. Hosting this segment of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, International Authority on Leadership Presence, Akim Nowak.
Hello and welcome. Welcome to all of you who are listening, and welcome to my guest, Melanie Roche. I am just tickled that you're here. Melanie is an international authority on energy healing. She works with clients in person, over Skype, over telephone, all over the world. Melanie was also an instructor at the Brennan School of Healing, which is the only school where people can actually get a BS in energy healing, and they can get it in Miami and in Tokyo. And you were an instructor in both sites, which was a great honor. And I know that right now you're passionately interested in helping people to connect more deeply with themselves and to help them to fully actualize their potential. So I know we have lots to talk about.
We do.
First thing, because you know I'm into the concept of energy, and I just need to be honest. We first met over 20 years ago in Manhattan when we lived around the corner from each other in the West Village, and I mention that because you had remember you just telling me that you had discovered energy work, and that you were going to study energy healing. So help us understand. How the heck did that happen?
Yes. First of all, thanks for having me.
Sure.
It's great to see you after all these years. I had a health issue. I had a lump in my breast in my early 30s, and cancer runs in my family, and I was pretty terrified, very terrified. And I went and I had a needle aspiration, and the cells came back suspicious. And the doctor said, we have to do surgery. We have to take the whole lump out and really see, is it cancer or not? And it happened, and I scheduled it. I'm pro-conventional medicine. What I do is truly complementary, not alternative. So I scheduled the biopsy. And at the same week, I happened to pick up at East West Books in Manhattan, Barbara Brennan's first book, Hands of Light. And it made a profound impact on me. So I called a healer, and I went for a session, and I had a very profound experience, really life-changing. I felt something happening on the table. I felt energy moving. I felt it as if I were being filled up with water. And I understood that there was a connection between my physical issue and the emotion behind it. In my case, like you, I was in theater. I had written a play. I had gotten in a lot of trouble in graduate school. We knew each other then. And I remember this healer had crystals hanging in her window, and the sun was shining through the crystals, making a rainbow on my shirt right where the lump was. And she said to me, Melanie, this is not about the cancer in your family. This is not about your genetic heritage. It's not even about your sadness, but it's about your creativity. And if you stick with this process, she said, I guarantee you're going to get your creative life back. Now, that sounds like New Age pablum to some degree, but then when I felt something happening on the table, I was really curious. And then you wrote about this in your book. As I left her office and I walked to Riverside Park, all these children were reaching out to me from their strollers as if to say, pick me up, play with me. And I don't have children. I was very awkward with kids. So when they did that, I felt like, what's going on here? I'm different. And then all these dogs were running up to me as if to say, pet me, play with me. So that was odd.
Yeah.
And then when I sat down in Riverside Park, I remember, you wrote about this in your book too, looking out over the Hudson River looking at the sunlight glinting on the water, feeling the way the wind was blowing through the trees, and feeling like, oh God, I get it. The universe exists at a certain frequency, a certain tempo, a certain rhythm, and I am back to being congruent with that. I didn't know what that meant yet, but that was interesting to me. And then when I had the biopsy a week later, the cells were normal. I don't know if the healing caused the cells to convert back to normal. I'll never know, but I was curious enough to start working with that healer. And as I did, my life began to change really quickly. I was dating someone that wasn't going well. I left that relationship, started dating men who were better for me. I got hired to write for the first time. My life started changing. So long answer to your question, but really life-changing. And now when I work with clients, it's the same. They go through this big process of, you may come in with one issue, and then that's usually always the gateway into deeper life issues.
So part of what I was thinking of as you were talking, we live in a culture that values cognitive insights, and we believe that if I can just figure it out, I can take care of it. And what I'm hearing you say is, well, we can figure it out on a deeper level, which is the energetic level. But a lot of folks might be listening to you and go, when we use the word energy, what are we actually talking about?
Sure, of course, right. So what is energy?
What is energy?
And in China, they would say it's qi, and in India, they would say it's ki, right? Or Japan. Prana in India, ki in Japan. So we don't exactly know what it is, but it is a life force, a sense of vitality. And when you think of health, if you think of your life as flowing pretty effortlessly, and when you think of dis-ease in any way, emotionally, physically, as a blockage, we all know that stuck feeling. We all know that feeling of, things just aren't flowing in my life. I feel completely lost. I think so many people now feel distracted in life, or feel overwhelmed or busy, or like technology serves us. Here we are. This is amazing. We can connect to people all over the world. And at times we allow it to scatter us. We have trouble setting boundaries on it. We have trouble really connecting. And if we're connecting, we have trouble connecting with ourselves first. So my passion lately is to help people connect inside to what's actually happening proprioceptively in me right now. And from that knowledge...
Explain that fancy word you just used.
Proprioceptive
I have no idea what that means.
Okay. I'm glad you asked. Okay, so that big fancy word means, how do I sense from the inside what is actually happening with me? Let me give you an example. Once, years ago, before I was a healer, I was walking in Manhattan, and I had on a long woolen skirt. It was a cold day, and I had a slip-on. Women will know what that word is. Men, you may not. Like a underskirt that you would wear. And I could feel the way it was rubbing on the back of my legs, that it was showing. It was sticking out. Now, it wasn't that I turned and looked at my skirt and said, oh, my slip is showing, but I could just feel the way the fabric was rubbing on my tights and my boots. Oh boy, So that's a sense of knowing from the inside out, a sensation. So you can know sensation, you can know emotion, you can know tension.
Well, it's funny, I was thinking, because you're talking about helping the folks you work with to just connect in a deeper way with themselves, and therapists do that, and coaches do that, but obviously what you do is a little different. I'd love to understand how is your work different from the kind of work that a coach or therapist might do with someone?
Well, I love therapy and I love coaching, and I make use of both. What energy healing adds to the mix that I think is so valuable that no other modality really adds is this awareness of the body and the emotion and to some degree spiritual life all at once. So if you can track inside yourself what you're actually experiencing moment by moment, then you can actually connect with another person. And so by doing that, that's energy, that's life force, that's vitality. And then you can really live your life. It's so corny to say and give your gift to the world, but you really can. You can live congruently with what you want your life to be about. So therapy, I find, you talk about the issues, but in my case, I didn't really find it possible to make shifts. But with the energy work, things started happening quickly.
Well, you know that I'm a believer.
Yes.
But maybe describe to us, let's say, if I was coming to Melanie Roche for a session.
Right.
What could I expect to have happen in this session? Like, what would
Sure.
you do with me?
Right. Okay, so I work in two ways now, and I want to talk about the program that I'm going to be talking about in January. So, if you want to learn how to be in touch with yourself energetically, I'm going to be teaching this by teleseminar. So I think Nestor's going to post the website where you can sign up for
Awesome.
my newsletter, and there's a free gift there, but I'll also notify you after the holidays when the course is starting. So I will teach you how to connect with yourself, how to communicate, how to know your needs, and then how to communicate them to others. So that's one way to work with me. Another way is one-on-one sessions. So that's very in-depth personal work, and I'll give you an example of a recent client. She's a business owner. She lives in the South, and I work with people all over the world by Skype and by phone, so you don't have to be in the same room with me here in Los Angeles. But she is in a culture that is telling her she ought to not want such a big life for herself. She's being told, just get married and have babies, and she owns a business. She would like a partnership at some point, but she doesn't really want to live so small. And nobody around her is teaching her that that's okay to want that and how to do it, how to make it possible. So in the first session, I just listen to what she actually wants and hold in myself, it's like tuning an instrument, a possibility of what she wants. So we might talk for half an hour and I'm just listening, but I'm listening with my whole body, resonating like a big cello or something. Then when we start to do the energy work, so she lies down on her back in North Carolina, and I am in Los Angeles standing in front of my massage table as if she's in the room with me. So I check her energy field, I tune myself to what she needs, and I put my hands on the bottom of where her feet would be. It's the strangest thing, but after we talk, as I give the healing, I'm working my way up the body. Very specifically, I can tell she's holding in her neck this feeling of complete existential terror, just a feeling of, I don't have a right to exist, really. Nobody loves me, just that sort of outsider pain. When I call her back at the end of the session, she'll say, it's the funniest thing. I felt this pain in my neck, and it hurt, and then it was gone. I coughed, and then it was gone. So that's an example of just one session. And really, in just a few sessions, she's getting more clients for her.
Yeah.
Right? Her life is starting to turn around very quickly, and she's delighted, of course.
If I just want to offer a little testimonial to really corroborate what you're saying, because we
Yeah.
haven't done that work together, but in
Yeah.
the 1990s in Manhattan,
Right.
I did energy work with a fellow named Arnie Kalodner, and it was very funny. I would see my talk therapist, who I really liked, but at some point, Robert and I would say, I said, Robert, I need to see Arnie now, because I need to go deeper. And Arnie would just we would lie on a massage table in his studio in Hell's Kitchen, and he would just start moving his hands over my body, never touching it. Yes. And at some point, he would find spots where my energy was stuck, and he would say, just talk. Right. And I would just, whatever I need to say came out. Usually, I don't remember what I said. It was all primal stuff. I would be completely emotionally wiped out of these sessions, but I felt a clearing and a sense of freedom and openness. And it was all energetically releasing stuff that was blocking me. It sounds so simple.
Yes.
But that's the kind of work we cannot really totally do on our own. I mean, we can do, I think, lightly, but the deep work, it behooves to have somebody like you, in my case it was Arnie, to do that work with us. Am I describing that correctly, or how does that
You're
relate to what
describing
you
it
do?
beautifully,
Yeah.
and I do believe that this human connection is the only way to do it. No one can do it alone. I still work with my healer, right? And so it deepens your connection, and as your life clears, as the energy clears, life starts happening much more easily, much less drama, much more connected to, you're talking about leadership, right? I've watched you over the past 20 years really step into your own and your leadership and your influence, and it's beautiful to see. And it's true really for everyone that I work with. So if you're a mom who just feels like, oh, I lost myself somehow. I used to be, this physicist, and now I just clean up after my kids, and I don't know who I am anymore. I work with people like that, but I also work with big leaders all over the world who, run private wealth management companies or run big organizations, and they all see the benefit of energy work to step forward into your life, how you want it to be, and it is all energetic.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
The one thing I found as a coach, and I'd love for you to talk about this, is, and you're talking about it, how do you describe to someone who doesn't know what the other side looks like because we're too stuck in our old pain? How do you describe to somebody what that is, and how do you create the hope that you can get there? Because it's really about getting to a way of being that we don't know yet.
Right. Well, it's funny you were mentioning Mandela, and I think of Martin Luther King and going to the mountaintop.
Right.
Right. My husband James Roche talks about the mountaintop.
Yeah.
So, I have been to that mountaintop, and I know what it's like to be mired in your pain, and then I know very palpably in day-to-day life what it's like on the other side. So I can describe, hey, I'm going to be your guide, your Sherpa up the mountain, and I'm going to encourage you to voice what you long for, what you've lost, what you see for yourself. And I have no agenda for you, but I'm very good at listening in an embodied way to help you get there. And then as the energy begins to clear out any mistaken beliefs that you feel keep you from that, or any sense culturally of this is not permissible, or any sense of, my goodness, I'm a big leader, I'm running a huge organization, but somehow I've lost touch with myself internally. I don't, too many moving parts. Technology is taking over my life. I can guide you through how to reconnect with yourself so you come out the other side. So it's not hard, actually, the warmth and the competence quite naturally, I think, inspires hopes in people.
So if for somebody who's listening to us right now, could you give us maybe just one specific example of what connecting with myself look like? Something that I can do on my own?
Yeah.
So you get a taste of it, and I know it's not the same as working with you.
Sure, yeah, excellent. Okay, so let's do a very quick experiential. Now, I just want to say a quick story about it.
Sure.
Very quick. Yeah, we have a couple minutes. So years ago in New York, I happened to be with a mother and her daughter. Tragic story. The daughter had an aneurysm and over the course of 12 hours died. But during that day when we rushed her to the hospital and we were there, this young surgeon was attempting brain surgery, and I was sent out to get some x-rays to see if we could keep her alive. And as I was running back in the hospital, I happened to see the surgeon standing literally, those swinging doors that they have in hospitals. She had opened one of those doors and closed it around herself, and she was standing in the corner weeping. And I had this feeling of, oh my God, this surgeon, obviously the surgery it didn't go well, but there was no place or time or space in her life for her to feel her grief and her disappointment that she wasn't going to be able to save this little girl's life. And I feel like life is like that for a lot of people, whether or not you're a surgeon. The heroism that's required to do our life work really well requires deep contact. So, big dramatic story. Here's how to do it. And I think this can be useful to you if you're a nurse, if you're a doctor, if you're a mom, if you just need a minute to connect with yourself. And I'm going to do a very simple version here.
Sure.
But so imagine that, your kid is saying, Mom, I need you, or your patients, or you have to run to the next patient, or, you just got off the plane, it's time for the business meeting, and you're fried. Just take a moment and feel this ball of light above your head. And we're going to scan through our body very quickly and very simply through our whole body. So imagine that this ball of light melts into your head. And it's like butter melting. It's going to travel down through your brain, your sinuses, down your throat, down into your lungs. Check out your heart, You're just sensing with this ball of light any areas of tension, tightness, pain, held feelings. So keep letting it melt down through your rib cage, your torso, your abdomen. And you're not changing anything. You're not judging or changing anything. You're just noticing, where am I now? What's happening in my pelvis? Down your legs. Through the center of your knees, down your calves and your shins, into your ankles, your feet, and your toes. And you just notice what's happening, what's here. Right? In my case, I had a little fluttery feeling in my tummy, slight feeling of, oh God, we're on the air, right? We're connecting.
Right.
But also a sense of, this is exciting. I can connect with people all over the world. So there's a way that when I notice that fluttery feeling, I fly out of my body, I lose myself. Just to be aware of, all right, how do I be present with myself? And as I open my eyes, I can see the colors are brighter. You look more here. I'm more
we're
here.
vibrating more.
Yes. Exactly. You can see that.
I can see it, yeah. Now, how important is it, because we just close our eyes a little bit, which I did with you.
Yes.
But very often as we run through life, we don't have the luxury to say, wait a minute, let me close my eyes for a minute.
Sure.
I'm in a meeting or something.
Right.
How do we reconnect without leaving?
Right. How do we do it on the fly?
Yeah.
So here's an example, right? I was in a doctor's office yesterday. There was a lot of stress. There was a lot of people being afraid.
Yeah.
And literally you can just feel your bottom on the chair, feel your feet on the floor. So I didn't have to close my eyes. I just felt like, okay, I'm here, right? You can do that in a meeting.
Yeah.
And when you do it, you can sense the energetic connection with someone. Like right now, I can see that your eyes are crinkled in the corners. Like we're really connected here. That's how you do it. You can do it at any moment. You don't have to close your eyes.
I know you have a strong background in body work. I know you're a performer. You study that. And we're talking about energy now, but we're also talking about physical manifestations, right? How important is body work, or any body work, to working with energy?
I think it depends on the person. I think in my case, that's my way in. The body is the way in.
Yeah.
For other people, it really might be conceptual and then emotional. A therapist could go there too without necessarily starting with the body.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately the body's pretty foundational because it, the stereotype of it never lies. It's true. So I think
the cliche is, and there's truth to it, in my world, which is primarily executive coaching.
Yes.
Part of what we work on with all the time is folks who are cut off from themselves down here, which
Absolutely.
means we live in the head. We celebrate brainy people, and I love brainy people, so I get off on brainy people. But you're talking about energetically being with all of ourselves. But also heard you say, well, we can get there cognitively, maybe not just through the body. So I just love you to clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, I think we start from where we are. And we start from where we are without judging ourselves for where we are. So lots of leaders have been rewarded, I know I was, for being in our heads. Certainly when I went to Columbia undergrad, we didn't talk about the body at all. It was irrelevant. And in my family growing up, intellect was valued, the body was devalued. So I'm not anti-intellectual at all. We start from where we are. But then think of your personal magnetism, right? Leaders, business leaders, entrepreneurs, I work with lots of them. You want to be effective. You want to resonate with people. And if you're confused about how to do that, you can read all the books about the cognitive way to do it you want, but ultimately you need to know when you're moved by someone. and I can help you get there and know when you move people. And you can obviously tell when what you say in a business meeting lands and when it doesn't. So if you're feeling like I'm not landing and I don't know why, this is the kind of thing I love to help people.
I just wonder for any business leader who's listening,
Yes.
What you just said, that is the differentiating factor that I think the great ones move us energetically.
Yes.
And if you don't know how to open that door, you work with somebody like Melanie, who helps open the door for you seriously, because that is the difference.
Yes.
That is the difference. You just described it. We see you have this wonderful CD, and I love the delicious title of it. Would you talk a little bit about the CD and why you chose that title and,
Yes.
and what folks might get from your CD?
All right, so I'm an energy healer, which has a reputation often for being very new agey or very woo-woo.
Yeah.
And, oh, she meditates. Well, yes, I meditate. But before I meditated, I'm a reluctant meditator. I heard about the benefits of being mindful. I heard about, you can be more effective as a leader.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what people were talking about, really. So as I began to dip my toe in the water of meditation, I felt like, you know what? I'm a reluctant meditator. And why gloss over that? Because I think lots of people who say that they want to meditate, they say they want the benefits, the health benefits, the emotional, the connection, the spiritual connection, the development. There's a sense before you start of, I don't have time for that. What is that? And I didn't want to pretend otherwise. So the CD is actually full of really short experientials that can take you into a change of your state right away, within a minute to 3 minutes to 5 minutes, to change your state so that very quickly you feel like, I feel different. That's what I call a reluctant meditator. And when you start feeling different, then your curiosity gets piqued. So that's really what the CD is about. Lots of quick experientials to change your state rapidly, to be more effective.
Good. So, and if anybody is listening right now thinking, this woman sounds pretty cool and I would like to work with her, I know we're going to flash the information, but I'd love for you to talk about how do people find you?
Right. So my website is my name, MelanieRoche.com. And I have a tab there called Free Gift. So if you go to that tab and you sign up for the free gift, you get a report about energy and working with your energy and stories about lots of business people and all kinds of people working with their energy. So by signing up there, you get this report. You're also then on my mailing list. So I don't bombard you with emails, but occasionally I send out a newsletter about once a month or so, and I let you know about new programs. So you can either email me directly, Melanie@MelanieRoche.com, and Nestor's going to flash the website, or you can click on that tab there and go to the free gift and be on my mailing list.
Okay. So just as we wrap things up, just help us understand what you find most satisfying, most enjoyable about the work you do. Because when I met you, you were an actress and you were working as a paralegal, and you had this cool degree from NYU in performance studies, and you're on a whole other planet now.
Right.
And you've been doing this for a while, and you're recognized all over the world as an authority in this.
Yes.
So what do you find most satisfying in this work for you on a very personal level?
Right. So even when I was doing theater and dance, my longing was to come out of my head and into my body, and into connection with people, into exactly what I'm describing, feeling myself, feeling you, being moved by you, and moving others. And my passion now is I see so many people in all areas of life doing that. They're people that are affected by other people. They're living life fully, and they want to, in turn, affect other people so that my work ripples out. If I affect you and you affect other people, then by extension, I'm affecting all these people that you also affect. So that makes me really happy. That's what I'm about.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Last thing, there's a word that I love and that you love, and you've talked about the idea of embodying things. What does it mean to embody, and what are we embodying as we wrap things up?
Right. So very quickly, it means having access to your full self and bringing your full self into every moment of your life so that you're fully there with everyone you meet, living fully, feeling yourself. It includes your body and your head, your emotion, your mental life, your spiritual life. All of that can grow and develop fully as you connect. And that's embodiment is the umbrella for all of that.
Yeah. Well, so thank you, Melanie.
Thank
I
you,
got a
Achi.
real kick out of talking to you. And for anybody who wants to more fully embody whatever that is for you, I urge you to reach out to Melanie or any other energy healer who does this work. It's changed my life, and it's very powerful. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Achim.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Hello, I'm Joel Ramirez
And I'm Lolita Robinson Coppage, and welcome to Joy in My House
on LATalkLive.com. Inspirational radio
with a touch of recovery.
A reality show where nothing is left unsaid,
And no one is insignificant who says it.
exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is John McClure Jr., a.k.a. Simply John, and I would like to invite you to join us on GospelRhythms.com every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our show, GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio. Join us as we celebrate Christians around the world in all genres of entertainment, as well as highlight interest stories on men and women who are making a difference and impacting their community. So don't forget to tune in to GospelRhythms.com on LA Talk Live. And we're more than just talk. Remember, it's a heaven's party here on earth. So live life. Love God.
Josh Lane and Dr. Hans Kugler of Here's to Your Health, in conjunction with A4M, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, invite you to attend the 21st Annual World Congress on Anti-Aging Medicine, December 12th through 15th at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas. Check it out at worldhealth.net. That's worldhealth, one word, .net. And while you're there, sign up for the free longevity newsletter. Just look for the bouncing red ball. At worldhealth.net, also print out a page about the Las Vegas Congress and pass it along to your doctors. More than 3,500 healthcare professionals will convene at the Las Vegas Congress, where they will teach and demonstrate with hundreds of exhibitors about every anti-aging modality. Be sure to attend the World Congress on Anti-Aging Medicine, December 12th through 15th at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas. Presented by the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. Visit worldhealth.net for more details. The 21st Annual Congress on Anti-Aging Medicine, proud sponsors of Here's to Your Health with Josh Lane and LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My guest is the photographer Robert Landau, who has a number of books out. You've seen his works in publications, Rolling Stone, Forbes, many, many publications. He has this delightful, fun, intelligent book, Rock and Roll Billboards at Sunset Strip, in which, as a young teenage boy, he began working with his first camera, taking photos of the billboards as they first started to appear on Sunset Strip in the, early 1967. And he managed to document them for about 15 years and capture the entire era. Robert Landau, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you for having me here.
No, it's fun to have you here. It's a delightful book. And what prompted you as a 16-year-old to start taking photos of billboards of rock and roll?
Well, oddly enough, I sort of grew up in a very visual family. My father had an art gallery on La Cienega. I grew up in West Hollywood. So I always had this kind of visual orientation and appreciation for visual things. I didn't have the patience to paint or draw, but I was attracted very early on to photography. I got a camera when I was quite young and loved taking pictures. And by the time I was 16, my folks had separated, and I was living up about a block from Tower Records, which was sort of the heart of the Sunset Strip. Mm-hmm. And I'd go out and explore my world with my camera, and my world at that time was the Sunset Strip. And as I'd walk down onto the street, I'd see these guys out there painting these enormous billboards. They looked like, artists painting things like the Beatles 15 feet high. Mm-hmm. And I just had this appreciation, this kind of sense of this kind of surreal, larger-than-life images of the people whose music I was listening to. So just for myself, I began photographing these.
And so really, so you got all these photos. So where'd you go to college, by the way?
I went to Cal Arts. Well, I actually started out in a little state college in Northern California, got more interested in photography, and transferred down to Cal Arts here in Valencia, California Institute of the Arts.
They had a good photography department?
They did. At the time, it was fairly loose leaf. I didn't get a lot of technical training, but it was kind of a nice art background and appreciation for art. So that just furthered my interest in photography.
And you gravitated towards billboards because you saw yourself as a genre photographer, as a street photographer, as a rock and roller. I mean, was there anything you were trying to accomplish at that point?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I first started taking them, it was really just about documenting these great images of my music heroes. But as you just said, yeah, street photography is what I got into. I sort of started getting interested in the works of people like André Cortège, Brassai, mostly European street photographers. And I thought what they had done was sort of captured the sense or the spirit of a particular place and time in their photographs, mm-hmm. Just by having an open eye and kind of wandering the streets. So that was sort of what I was following, that approach.
Photography is just a wonderful technology. I mean, when I looked through your book and I saw the very first shots of the very young Doors, arguably one of America's most important bands, really, if not the preeminent band, to see them as young men hanging around while this billboard was going up was, for me, who was a young teen boy at the time, it was just nice to see them as young men. And it was just nice to see that billboard. And, of course, the way you write about the subject, lightly talking about, how it came about, the technological innovation, Holtzman, Lou Adler, men who had a lot of significance in the field. And, did you interview these men? Is that it for the book?
I did, yeah. I really, once the idea for the book came about, I thought, well, I don't want just an album of these pictures. As much as I love the pictures, I wanted to create a sense of the time and place that caused this thing to happen. And I think it was a pretty special time when all these rock and roll billboards, and they're all hand-painted, appeared on the strip. And it happened for a lot of reasons. It happened because there weren't that many places you could advertise at the time. It really wasn't cool to advertise on TV in the 60s and 70s. And
that's right. It really wasn't.
Yeah, it was sort of been thought of as selling out. If, for instance, the Doors music was on a Chevy commercial or something, they would say, "Oh, they've sold out. Forget them."
Uh-huh.
So there weren't that many places, and they were making a lot of money. They were selling a lot of records, and that whole generation. When the Beatle record came out, everybody bought it, or when a new Rolling Stones album. So there's just a lot of interest. From the rock groups, and then also from the, as you mentioned, Jack Holtzman, Lou Adler, some of the music producers also, that was how they could tout and tell the other people in the industry, hey, we've got Cat Stevens, or we've got a new Police album. This is the way they could announce it. And the money was really secondary. It was really about creating these great visual statements on the Sunset Strip.
And again, so Jack Holtzman, in your opinion, deserves credit for the first rock and roll billboard on Sunset Strip.
I think so. That was 1967. And up till that point, if you drove on the Strip, you might see something for Sinatra or Sammy Davis or something for a hotel in Las Vegas or cars or cigarettes. But there was really nothing selling rock and roll albums. And frankly, to that point, we were all buying 45s. You remember we were all buying singles.
Yes, I do remember.
And then when the Doors and the Beatles albums started coming out, then we really started buying the albums. And then they had something that they could promote through a billboard. And I think Jack Holtzman deserves credit for seeing that link and seeing the idea that you could advertise rock and roll billboards, rock and roll through billboards on the Strip. And more importantly, I think to him, after I spoke to him, I got the idea that he was really not only trying to get it out to the public, but to get the attention of the radio disc jockeys who decided what got played. And he knew that a lot of them drove along Sunset to go to work. And he thought if he could plant a seed in their mind, they might be more open to the music once they heard it.
It's also very interesting when you wrote about. I did not know that was his rationale, and also I didn't realize that Holtzman, with the first Doors album, was the first guy to kind of capitalize on it. It's interesting to see how someone has an idea, and then that idea, everyone thinks that was a very good idea, and then they copy it. It's very interesting to see how that can occur, and also I think men and women are happy to say, gee, that was my idea. I was the first guy to do that. And I'm sure Jack Holtzman was very happy to tell you that, no, it was his idea. And also to start out with the Doors as the first group, a band that really I think everyone thought, man, these guys are great. You know, it wasn't some schlocko band. I'm not, cast aspersions, but it was the Doors. So that really set the tone right away.
Yeah, I think that was very fortuitous. It was really a great album. It's still it's still one of my favorite albums.
Oh, it holds up for me for sure.
Yeah.
And now Holtzman, according to your book, started Elektra Records in his dorm room at St. John's in 1950. Is that what he told you?
That's true.
I must be very proud of that.
Told me. Yeah, he's a New York guy, and really the whole music business before the mid '60s was all centered in New York.
Right.
And then once the Beatles and that sort of English invasion happened, somehow it all shifted to California, and San Francisco had a great scene going on with the Haight-Ashbury and a lot of live music. But L.A. and the Sunset Strip, and I think because of the presence of the entertainment industry, there were already a lot of great recording studios here and a lot of incredible session men. So L.A. almost by default became the recording capital of the rock and roll of that classic rock period.
Sure. Yeah. And what about Lou Adler? Lou Adler, was he easy to get in contact with?
Yeah, he's another person I spoke with. Lou's a guy who did everything in the music business. He started out partnering with Herb Alpert, and they worked with Dan and Dean, and they...
that was, by the way, in your book. And, I like rock and roll, and I like to read about rock and roll, and I think I have a sense of rock and roll. Yeah. And when you made those connections, him working with Herb Alpert, with Jan and Dean, I had never read that, and I thought that was delightful.
Yeah, these guys, once you get into a world, you realize how people's lives intersect. But Lou's a guy who just had a good ear for music. He did the Mamas and the Papas, and of course his most famous record is the Tapestry, Carole King, which probably is still selling records today.
That was an important album for Carole King. That was really a very impressive accomplishment for her.
Oh yes, it was a huge selling, and that also record signified kind of a shift from music stars getting songs written by writers and the writers becoming the stars themselves.
Sure.
Because Carole King is probably somebody who really started her career writing songs for other people.
Yes.
And then he gave her the opportunity, Lou Adler that is, gave her the opportunity to become a star herself and really create one of the best-selling records of all time.
Didn't Carole King write for Little Eva, Do the Locomotion?
She sure did.
Which is a great song. She wrote that for Little Eva.
Yeah.
That was an earlier incarnation of her life.
Yeah, and she might have written Up on the Roof, too. I'm not sure.
Oh, really?
It's a great song.
Oh,
yeah.
far out.
Yeah.
When you bumped into these people, for example, Lou Adler, who really helped promote the Mamas and the Papas, another important and really remarkably good band, and when you hear them now, they still sound kind of shocking even now. I hear them now and I think to myself, oh my God, the male-female thing is like, that's kind of tough to implement. And they had such an interesting sound there for a couple of albums, that band.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to think it's just that I'm stuck in my age, but I really think there's a reason we call it classic rock. I think there really was something going on. I think the whole culture came together, and the music had a lot more importance. I'm sure I'm showing my age, but it just feels like, to me, there weren't as many other distractions. You couldn't go too many other places to get entertainment. There wasn't an internet.
That's right.
So the music was really a unifying thing throughout the culture, and the music was. The music visually was represented through the album covers, which then became these amazing billboards on the strip. And that's sort of where I got in, because I'm, in some ways, even a little bit more of a visual guy than I am a music guy. So I was fascinated first by the album covers, and then by how they were represented on the strip in these 14 by 48 foot hand-painted dimensions.
One of the early shots in your book, when it first is that Jimi Hendrix billboard, psychedelic Jimi Hendrix billboard, which was really very lovely. Were you 16, 17 when you took that shot?
About 17, 18, yeah.
And do you remember thinking that this is a great billboard, or this is kind of, what did you think when you were looking at billboards in those days?
Well, we really thought of ourselves as being the counterculture. It really felt like we were kind of, in a way, opposed and fighting to the previous generation that seemed to be controlling everything. So seeing this kind of psychedelic image up on the strip instead of a Cadillac or an Oldsmobile or something, it really felt like, our generation's really sort of coming in now and getting its chance to shine. And, and there's no getting away from the fact that drugs were a part of that. And a lot of us did experiment at the time. So it really was kind of, in a way, validating to see this kind of imagery being depicted publicly in the street.
On these images that you have in your book, Rock and Roll Billboards of Sunset Strip, for example, that Jimi Hendrix poster, billboard rather, did you take many shots of that and then decided, I'm going to use this one for the book because it was the clearest? Or what was the editorial decisions that you made, for example, on that particular poster or that billboard, which was really such a lovely representation of the genre?
It was pretty scattered early on. I was just kind of grabbing shots as I went by. And then later on, I got more serious about it, and I would take them from different angles. I'd go across the street, shoot them with a telephoto lens. But early on, I was just kind of documenting them, and then I got a little more sophisticated with the idea. And then even further on, then I started looking at them and seeing how they were related to the environment. And towards the end, I was looking at them with people walking by for scale, or sometimes just a portion of the billboard as related to the environment. So it was a little bit of my own photographic journey and how I photographed them.
By the time you have photographed Steve Martin's Comedy Is Not Pretty, was that the late 70s?
That was around about 78.
Okay, so by 78 already, obviously the world had moved on from psychedelic stuff.
Yeah.
So how did you photograph that billboard? How was it different from, say, the Jimi Hendrix shot in 1968?
Well, I think I definitely was not only interested in documenting the billboard, and first of all, my goal was to document the work, not to put myself in front and try to make too clever a picture, but to really document this work that I thought was so amazing. And the book does that too. I really put a lot of focus on the people responsible for the artwork that was up there. But by the time the Steve Martin came along, I was looking at, the cars that were parked in front of it and the things that were going on around it. That
adds to it, I find. I think it adds to the photo, yes.
Yeah, it does. And what's amazing about photography is whatever else it is, it's really a document first and foremost.
It is a document.
Documents whatever's in front of the camera.
It's a document.
And we take these things for granted, but if you look at these images from the 70s, everything looks completely different. The shapes of the cars, the colors of the cars, the kinds of other signs in the atmosphere, in the environment, the buildings. So it really does kind of document a specific place and time, which is what I hope.
It documents it in a very nice way. So really, by this point, you're making a conscious effort to okay, and you have a body of work. You had a body of work, and so I'm documenting these billboards. And frankly, in retrospect, it was a smart move. You have a very interesting, nice, fun book, but also it really represents a certain era that's really long time ago. That was a long ago, that era. And the work is nicely done.
Thank you. Yeah, and when I talk about documenting, you realize that on a certain level, everything's ephemeral. But these billboards were really ephemeral.
But you couldn't have known that when you were 16 or 17.
I didn't. No. But in a way, I think I did, because I'll tell you why. They were up for a month, and I first got interested because I saw the guys painting them. So they'd be there for a month, and they'd come and paint them out. So I realized if I didn't get the picture, it could be gone. If I wanted to show my friends what Abbey Road billboard looked like, I better get the shot when I see it.
Right.
And by the way, there's a very fun story about the Abbey Road billboard I can tell you if we have time.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if people remember, this was like 69, around December of 69, Abbey Road came out. and they erected this huge billboard on the strip of the album cover. The only difference is that the heads of the Beatles, individual Beatles, extend above the top of the frame of the billboard. They're plywood wood panels. And at that time, there were rumors going around that Paul McCartney was dead.
Yes.
They were, of course, false rumors because Paul's still alive and putting out great music. But at the time, the record company decided that they wouldn't do anything to squelch the rumors because it was creating so much buzz and selling more records.
Right.
So at the height of this period, somebody climbs up on the billboard and cuts Paul's head off took a little chainsaw up there and cut Paul's head off, and it went missing. So Capitol Records finds out about it from Foster and Kleiser, the billboard company. They send their guy out there to look at it. Roland Young, who was the art director at the time, he looks at the board and he says, you know what? It's going to get a lot more attention like this. Let's just leave it alone.
Right.
So they weren't
Smart move.
disappointed. Right.
Yeah.
So they were not disappointed that the head was gone. And so all these years later, this head's been missing, and my book's about to come out. And I think, I wonder what happened to Paul's head. Maybe if I offer a free copy of the book on my Facebook page, someone can tell me what happened to Paul's head. And the very next day, I get an email from the guy who took it. He was 16 then. He's in his 60s now. And it's hanging in his living room in the San Fernando Valley, this incredible painted depiction of Paul's head. And thanks to him, a little piece of the history survived because everything else got painted out.
Well, that is a great story. That's a great story. And it's a fun story, and it does document the era. So you working on these, was this one of your primary genres? Am I using that word correctly? Were you trying to do urban landscapes?
I wasn't trying to. I was really, as I started out, I was just shooting, but that is, in fact, what it led me to. That's where it took me. And I consider myself an urban landscape photographer. I've now photographed L.A., all these years, up till now, 30, 40 years of pictures of Los Angeles, which I think is one of the unique cities. I do a lot of travel photography, too, but I really come back to L.A. and I keep thinking what a strange and odd and unusual city it is, and I've tried to capture that. And I think just shooting those billboards really got me off in that direction.
And did you work and later billboards like, Pink Floyd's The Wall, and later Joe Cocker, and the later Sentimental Journey, Ringo Starr? All of those shots are very much fun to see, really. And a Led Zeppelin thing with some cymbals, and everyone got a little esoteric. And ELO's big spaceship, which, according to your book, was terribly expensive from the era.
It was. That one cost about $50,000, which was a lot of money.
Then.
Yeah.
Right.
And what they did was they created this plexiglass space station with revolving lights that they then affixed to the billboard. And a lot of clever things were done. They had so much money. There was one for Ringo where it spelled out his name, and then the eye would revolve, and there would be Ringo standing behind the eye. Eric Clapton had one with a three-dimensional light, but the one you mentioned, the yellow one, was really the most expensive one. And this plexiglass space station that they built was then used as a prop in their live shows.
Now, let's go back. When we were chatting before we came on in the green room today, you mentioned that the opening shots you have of the Doors' Light My Fire album with the four young Doors hanging around and looking just about to go up. You were able to obtain that from what archive again?
Well, there were a couple, I wanted to set the stage for the pictures I took, and that involved going back in history and finding, some images of the strip from the 50s and even earlier, but also some billboards that I hadn't been privy to shoot. And one of them was the Doors. When that billboard went up, they actually went to the Foster and Kleiser studio and posed for pictures in front of the billboards there. Mm-hmm. And then when it was put up on the strip, there are these wooden panels that they take apart, put on trucks, and then boom them up to these sites on the strip. So when it went up at its site near the Chateau Marmont on the strip, the Doors actually climbed up on the billboard and had more pictures taken there. So that day of that board going up was really well documented, and I had to do some research. One of the sources was a guy named Mark Wanamaker, who has a great archive of pictures. But then also Jack Holtzman himself had some pictures that he let me use. So there were different sources for those pictures.
So some of these photographs really have never been before in print.
Not in a book like this,
right.
No. I can't say for certain they haven't been printed anywhere, but I think this is the first sort of comprehensive look at the whole idea of rock and roll billboards as a kind of art form.
Yes. I think you did a very lovely job of it as an art form. And by the way, where can I buy this?
The book is available through Amazon, but if you're, it is in some bookstores. It's in Barnes and Noble has it, and if you're here on the Strip, Book Soup has a big stack. I just was in there, signed a bunch of copies, so it is in some of the local bookstores here in LA, but definitely available through Amazon. And I have a website, rockandrollbillboards.com. People can find out more information there or contact me if they want.
Were you at the Grammy Museum too?
We did do, yeah. The book is available there, and I actually did there was a show there not too long ago that I participated in, had some of the images were
Was
up
that
there.
fun?
That was a lot of fun.
That was fun, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also you've been at a couple of local universities too. You have to do a little touring show with the book, with the images.
Yes. Actually, my brother sort of took over the art business from my dad and has a traveling exhibition service.
Oh.
And
Let's give a plug for your brother. What's the name of it?
It's called Landau Traveling Exhibitions, LTE.
Well, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now he's started doing photography shows, and one of the shows that he's circulating is Rock and Roll Billboards of the Sunset Strip. So we have put together a group of the key images that will now circulate to museums around the country.
And you gave a lecture at the Getty?
Yes, we did it. I did speak at the Getty. That was sort of what got the whole thing started. At that time, I hadn't really zeroed on the billboards, but they knew that I had been shooting Los Angeles for many years, and we put together a talk called Disappearing Los Angeles, which were these urban landscape images of LA, of all the various signage and buildings, things that don't exist anymore, but that kind of captured a certain place and time in LA history.
Yeah, the Getty was very gracious with their funding for ideas about LA, which was really very nice of them.
Yeah,
really.
they had an ongoing project where they really looked at Los Angeles and what sort of put LA on the map historically in the art world.
Where are you going to be shortly with your images?
Well, there's a show. Actually, the show we were just talking about got booked into a university in Ohio. I'm blanking on the name right now, but people can find out on my site. And so we're just starting to organize this traveling exhibition. And I'm out shooting. I'm a travel photographer, so I'm back out doing that. I was recently up in Mendocino doing some work up there for a client. So just out shooting again, and hopefully another book will come up soon.
Well, that sounds good. And also, as far as reviews on Rock and Roll Billboards of the Sunset Strip, you got a very laudatory review in the New York Times.
Yeah, I think the book sparks with some people. I got a very nice review in the New York Times, and Rolling Stone wrote about it.
And you got a long review in the New York Times. You didn't get 2 paragraphs. You really got a review, and so they must have been real happy.
I think the writer took a shine to the subject. I think it sparked something that was familiar to him, and he felt a kinship with it, and he wrote a very nice review.
Yes.
Very, very interesting review, too.
And since the New York Times is the paper of record in the United States, when in preparation for the interview, I saw the review in the New York Times, I thought, oh, Robert Landau scored with this. Now, Robert, you have other books that you have one on the Airstream vehicles. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Because they're just very beautiful. Is that it?
Yeah. Well, no. I guess pop culture has sort of become. And I think you could sort of put this into that realm. Though I think sometimes the word pop is used in a demeaning way, and I think popular culture is what I'm interested in. It's the culture of the people, and this is these images of the billboards is the culture I grew up with. But there are other interesting cultural aspects of LA of America, and I like to collaborate with people. And I got together with a guy who grew up having a love affair with these Airstream trailers. Oh. And so I learned a lot about that subculture of Americana, the whole Airstream culture. So.
And what year did that book come out?
That book came out in the 90s, back in around 97.
And what was the press?
It was Peregrine Smith. Gibbs Smith was the publisher.
Is that still in print?
I'm not sure if it is still in print, but you can still find a lot of these through book searches on the web.
And what were your other books, other large format books?
Well, I did a book called Outrageous LA, which was Chronicle Books. That was a book about really just a sort of a gathering of these images of Los Angeles urban landscape that I've done. And then more recently, I got involved in another collaboration with a friend of mine, the guy who art directed this book. His name is Franz Evenhaus. He's Dutch, and he works for Warner Brothers as an art director. But he had collected all these images all his life of Hollywood celebrities by their swimming pools. Ah. So we did a book called Hollywood Poolside, in which I ended up writing the book and then doing some of the research. It was pictures of everybody from Charlie Chaplin to Clint Eastwood posing by their swimming pools, which was a big thing for a while, and help sort of sell the LA lifestyle.
Well, Robert Landau has been delightful. It's been delightful.
My pleasure.
It's been fun. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. We'll be right back after these important messages.
Hey everyone, this is Richard Carr, Business Relations Manager for LA Talk Live. Did you know social media produces almost double the marketing leads of trade shows, telemarketing, direct mail, or even pay-per-click ads? And that about 46% of all online users count on social media when making that ever-important purchase decision. Hey, if you feel lost when it comes to social media, Top Tier Media can help you. Top Tier Media specializes in social media management and blogger outreach for beauty, fashion, health, and lifestyle brands. To learn more, go to www.toptiermedia.com. That's www.toptiermedia.com. Top Tier Media, the official social media marketing company of LA Talk Live and the Talk Live Broadcast Network.
Hey y'all, I'm Shaquem Williams and I'm the host of The Shock Factor here on LA Talk Live. We broadcast to the world every Friday at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. Live music, live performances, we're just live. Chef Momo, Life MC, Diana, and once again your host Shaquem Williams. So come join us every Friday here at LA Talk Live, the world-leading broadcasting internet radio station. The Shock Factor. The Shock Factor. Join us on The Shock Factor.
This is Brett Chapin.
And this is Dorothy Dillingham Blue, inviting you to join us every Saturday at noon Pacific Standard Time for our show, La La Land Talk.
Join us as we talk with some of the top talent in LA. Artists' untold stories, your phone calls, and live on-location broadcasts have made La La Land one of the best sources in LA for everything entertainment.
So don't forget to tune in to La La Land Talk.
Exclusively on latalklive.com.
You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com.
Saturdays at noon Pacific Time. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/LaLaLandTalk, Twitter, twitter.com/LaLaLandTalk. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live.
And we are more than just talk.
And now, host of Here's to Your Health, registered pharmacist, educator for boron homeopathic medicines, RaphaeleCohen-Bacry.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be on the show. And today I have the pleasure to welcome my guest, Dr. Jennifer Cagle. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
Thank you
Thanks for
so
having
much.
me.
Thank you so much for coming. I think you're our first plastic surgeon on the show.
Wow.
So yeah, it's exciting. and and I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but I just want to say that I think you're one of the few women in plastic surgery, at least in LA, if it's not in the whole country, and you're double board certified as a surgeon, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit maybe where you work and some of your background.
So my name is Jennifer Cagle. I am a plastic surgeon in downtown LA.
Mm-hmm.
I'm board certified in both general surgery and plastic surgery. And I also have a fellowship in craniofacial surgery. So I specialize in the face, both children and adult. And there are very few women plastic surgeons in LA, surprisingly.
Yeah, do you know why?
I don't know. It's a tough market. In general, there's about 20% women plastic surgeons in the country, which is there's more and more.
Mm-hmm.
In craniofacial surgery, there's about a handful. There's getting to be more, but at UCLA where I trained, I was the third out of 27 that had trained.
That's interesting. Do you think it's because it's very demanding as far as hours or physically?
I think a little bit of both. I think, there was a study done like a year ago showing that most women plastic surgeons actually didn't have kids and most weren't married. So I
That
think
would
that's
explain.
probably it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, fortunately, I have both. So
yeah, that's excellent. But I would think a woman would be good at plastic surgery because it requires a lot of, being very detail oriented and taste for, beauty. And I think it's perfect for a woman.
Well, that's what most people say. I mean, I like fashion and design and, married to an artist. So I like all that kind of stuff. And a lot of women think that I have an aesthetic for it. And I think women do. I mean, especially in breasts. I mean, I feel like my perspective on breast augmentation is different than other people. That's not to say there's not men plastic surgeons who don't have the same perspective that
obviously. Why is it a little bit different, you would say?
I just, I'm not so into talking women into really big sizes.
Okay.
I think it looks unnatural. I'm way more into the natural appearance,
Yes.
even with the fillers and the, noses, chins, that type of thing. It's probably a personal aesthetic thing too. So,
yeah. Well, I agree with you, actually.
You'd be surprised though.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures, but anyway. Would you say you have more female patients?
I have about half, I do have more female patients, but since I do a lot of nose surgery and I do kind of advanced nose surgery, I see both.
Okay.
And I do ears and chins, so I do see men.
Okay.
And men get Botox and fillers. They just sometimes hide it from people.
Is it a growing trend, you would think?
I think I've read that it is. I
Uh-huh.
mean, in LA, it's hard to gauge kind of what isn't a growing trend.
Everything is a trend.
But you would be, it's all types of people. What we get in downtown LA is really a great mix of people. It's a lot of people from the east side. It's like the working people in music and set designers and writers, and everybody gets something done. It's just how natural they look.
Yes,
it seems like.
that's what you want to achieve ultimately.
Yeah.
And do you do surgery in your office or at the hospital?
I do it. We just do procedures in the office. So like a small mole removal and then Botox fillers.
Okay.
Sometimes I do fat injection, which is like a permanent filler in the office, depending on where it's going.
Oh, would you tell us how that works? Because I'm sure a lot of listeners are, interested in learning about the procedures too.
Yeah, I would love to because I love doing it and I feel like it gets a bad rap. And I'm all about using your own products, your own
So you don't
fats.
reject it.
Right.
Yes.
And it's so much more. First of all, you get less infections.
Mhm.
And where I train in craniofacial surgery, my mentor was all about using your own stuff.
Okay.
So very little implants, very little. So if you do augmented chin, you use the bone and you replate it with plates and screws.
Okay.
So we used a lot of fat in congenital patients, and then I use it for lips and the lines and all that kind of stuff, and to lift the brow, help augment the cheeks.
So where do you get the fat from?
You get it from the tummy usually.
Okay.
A little incision hidden inside the belly button.
Uh-huh.
And then sometimes the inner thigh is a good place too if you get real skinny girls.
Uh-huh.
And it's a permanent filler. So I do it according to this technique called the Coleman micro-infiltration technique.
Uh-huh.
We spin the fat in a centrifuge, get rid of the supernatant, which is the clear stuff, get rid of the blood, and then we just put it in these tiny syringes, and I inject 0.1 cc, which, as you know, is a real small amount per pass. So it takes a while.
So you mean the patient has to come back, or you do it?
I do it one sitting and I overfill, and then I tell the patients at 4 months what's there for good is what's there at 4 months is there for good, and I tell them plan on having a couple extra fills, but typically they just have one and they're good. The take rate I tell them is 50%, but I get a much higher take rate, around 80%.
That sounds very, very good. I'm wondering why not everything is done this way.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I do, as I said, cosmetic. I do breast reconstruction patients to make their implants after reconstruction look less implanty. So we do a little fat
Smoother.
here.
Mhm. But you still need the implants, right?
What's that?
You still need the implants.
Yeah, you still need the implants, but it makes it transition nicer in a shirt. I do congenital kids who have been born with half their face smaller than the other. It's really an amazing thing. I think it gets a bad rap because some people don't adhere to the principles as closely as others. So they say, well, you can do fat, but it doesn't work. And so people say, well, I tried that, it didn't work. But I really think it's very cost effective for people who get fillers and such like that. You spend a one-time fee and you're essentially done, rather than coming back
Yes.
every 9 months, you know.
Or maybe that's why.
Yeah. I mean, come back every 9 months. No, I love to do it. It's really a great procedure. It's just it's not caught on as much as I'd like it to.
Well, maybe it's going to change. But would you say it's as painful or not painful? How would you describe the discomfort of the injection, if there is any?
No, that's a good question. It's not painful. I do a nerve block on your face, so
Okay.
you feel like you're at the dentist.
Really?
Yeah. So some of the people call this a stem cell. You know, you've heard about the stem
Yes,
cell.
yes.
People are marketing that as a stem cell transplant, but it's not.
No,
You know,
it's just your own fat.
it's your own fat. And, you know, some of the fluid may have stem cells, but the American Society of Plastic Surgery has not approved kind of stem cell work
Yes.
as it is. So you see that sometimes in People magazine, stuff like that, people doing stem cells. It's essentially fat.
And that's what it means. Okay, I was
Yeah.
wondering.
Fat with maybe a little bit of extra juju in it, I guess. I'm not sure 100% because it hasn't been approved. It's not something we do. So.
And in your case, you're just using the fat. You're not adding anything. You're
No,
substrating.
no. And the stem cells, I guess, could transform into other cells, cartilage, such like that. But we don't have that. So yeah.
And would you say what the percentage of plastic surgery procedures you do as opposed to reconstruction?
Oh, good question. Well, reconstruction is all ages. I start at age 0,
Mhm.
first day of life, to however old you want to be. I specialize in kids, cleft lip and palate. So
Mhm.
that's most of the surgeries are done before age 21, but can be done after.
Do you see a lot of those? Again, I was under the impression that those were not as common as it used to be, but do you still see a lot of them?
We see a lot of them. You know, I'm part of a cleft team at White Memorial Hospital, and
Downtown
we see
LA,
yeah,
right?
downtown
Yes.
LA. We see a lot of. It's prevalent in Latino and Asian cultures, so we see a lot of San Gabriel Valley Asian patients and Latino patients. in
Is
here.
it genetic?
It is. It's known to be either genetic and multifactorial. We're not
Okay.
sure 100% why it
Okay.
happens.
Uh-huh.
But we have a lot of patients still. It's not just in other countries, which always shocks people. But
Yes.
yeah, we have a cleft team sees patients every week. You know, hundreds, thousands of patients in the program.
Would you say it's better to fix it early on, or the sooner the better?
Well, it's kind of a protocol. When the kid is born, at 3 months, you fix the lip.
Okay.
When they're before a year, you fix their palate. And then there's other procedures that are done along the way. So it's always best to fix it, you know, when they're young, you know, the lip at least.
Okay, so you do, each kid needs several procedures.
Several procedures, yeah.
And then you don't see anything? Can you?
Well, you can still
almost-
see a small scar. You'd like to think your results are the best, but you'll still see something. Sometimes they have speech problems, so.
Yes.
But there's surgeries, you know, between 6 and 10, and then they have surgeries. I like to be done right before they take their senior picture, so get their nose done and
Yes.
everything.
Oh, you have to work on the nose too?
Yeah, the nose is always kind of slanted over to one side, the palate, and the breathing is always off. And sometimes there's issues with, as I said, the speech. Sometimes snoring is an issue too, so you have to refer them to other patients, to other doctors.
So the cleft palate, you take care of those at White Memorial Hospital, right? You don't do it at Good
No,
Samaritan.
not at Good Samaritan. Good Samaritan, I do mostly cosmetic procedures,
Mhm.
and then adult kind of reconstructive, you know, moles, lumps, bumps, you know, and breast reconstruction. I do both at Good Samaritan and then California Hospital.
And breast reconstruction, that's mainly after breast cancer?
After breast cancer, that's right. But I do some reconstruction for what's called Poland syndrome, when girls are born without a pectoralis muscle on that
Okay.
side. You can do implants for that too. So.
Okay, so that's also part of the reconstruction.
Right. But I would say about half is cosmetic, mostly of the face because of my training. So
Mhm.
noses, ears, eyes, forehead, cheeks, lips, etc. Chin.
You can
I
do
can
it.
keep going.
I wanted to ask you because that's my specialty, and I know you're using arnica, so you're pretty open to alternative solution. Can you say why you're using it and how you're using it? Because again, I think it can help a lot of people who don't know about it.
Sure. I mean, I love using the arnica. I use it in both forms, the pellet form and the gel. I recommend it for there it is. So I recommend it for 2 uses. I was kind of skeptical about it when I first met Raphael, and then I started using it with my patients. Yes, we have the small gel and the pellets at our office. I love it because it really cuts down on swelling and bruising, which is the number one complaint of patients. You know, they don't feel themselves if they feel icky and swollen and bruised. I think I told you this one case scenario. I had a girl, I did it was kind of reconstructive / cosmetic, a breast lift and kind of some other work. She'd had cardiac surgery, and her breast was red and swollen and awful. She felt terrible. She spent 3 days in the hospital, and I didn't give her arnica. And then I brought the gel to the hospital, and I said, you know, just put this on every couple of hours or so. And she got better right away. The swelling went down right away, and she went home that same day. So now for every
was your
cosmetic...
first real exposure.
It was amazing. So now for every cosmetic patient, I make them take their arnica pre and post-op, and it really is amazing the amount of phone calls that have decreased from it and how much happier the patients are.
Well, because it makes your work look better.
Yeah.
Because this is not the crucial part, the bruises and the swelling, but you know it's better if it's gone really quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you look good.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, the other thing is when you do Botox injections, fillers, we recommend the gel. We love that because people want to get filled for events, but then they bruise right after. So we recommend that to put that on right away. I give arnica pre-injection now.
Yeah. The pellets also.
The pellets. The people are open to it. And I believe it helps. It's such a nice thing.
I'd like to hear that.
I'm all about the natural stuff.
Do you give it to your non-plastic surgery patient?
The non-cosmetic patients?
Yes.
I do some. I recommend it. I mean, I think it's more of a service that I give it to the cosmetic patients, but we do tell them about it. We have it in the office for them if they want it. So pretty much everyone, we recommend it. I just gave it to a reconstruction patient yesterday because post-op, she just felt terrible, swollen. There was nothing wrong. So she started taking the arnica. She feels way better.
Good. Yeah. It's nice to hear.
So good job.
Let me ask you about the Botox because I know it's has become so popular. Do you see any downside of getting Botox, or is it potentially dangerous or anything? Or I'm guessing you should go to a very good physician when you're having that kind of injection, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bias. I feel like Botox should just be done by plastic surgeons because you just see it at malls and, you know, people have their girls that they do it. And some people do a good job. I feel like, I mean, I think I kind of sound like a jerk when I say it, but, you know, I could take your face and put it back together again. So I kind of know where to inject it.
No, I understand.
And some people just, it makes money. So in LA, you see that it's a very marketable thing. But it's sold to many different types of practitioners. So, but as far as
you mean you don't need to be a physician?
No, I mean I think a physician needs to be in charge of the medical spa you're at.
Yes.
But you see non-doctors injecting it
frequently. Doing the actual injection.
Yes. And dentists, all types of doctors.
And it's a toxin, right?
Yeah, so it's attenuated. You know, it's dead.
Course, yeah.
But yeah, it's a medicine. It's not like you're getting your hair dyed. You know?
Yeah, no, you don't want to inject it in the wrong place.
Right. I mean, the good news is it wears off in 3 to 4 months, so it's temporary. But I think the main side effect is that you can get drooping of an eyelid if it's injected in the wrong place.
But that would go away also?
It goes away with time.
Okay.
Yeah, or you can inject the other eye to make it just as droopy.
Yeah, I've seen some weird results on TV. Sometimes you don't recognize somebody, and now I know it's the drooping or
you can look weird, but I mean, I have such nice, normal people that they get Botox. I get Botox myself. My partner injects me.
Wow, that looks really natural because your forehead is still moving. You know, it's not like. Yeah.
So when I have someone the first time, I say, you know, how much do you want to move? And some people say, you know, make me as flat as a baby's bottom. And some people say, you know, I want to just try it a little bit. So you can just give a little bit. It's very, you can titrate it, which I like.
So is it the amount you're injecting or the numbers of injection? Of injections?
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah. And it just depends on how severe you have the wrinkles, the rhytids, as we say. But it's titratable, I feel like. That's why I feel like a doctor should do it because we kind of understand that, especially a plastic surgeon.
I think it makes sense. Can you do it even on people who have a lot of wrinkles or it's...
You can. I mean, you kind of just have to see what people's goals are. You know, you see people sometimes they are so wrinkled and they just say, I just want this gone, and nothing else bothers them. And it's fine. It's their prerogative, you know. It's their what they want. So that's fine.
Yeah. I heard before, I'm sure you've heard it 10 times, but I remember plastic surgeon telling me that when someone comes in, he didn't know what they would. It was not necessarily the thing that was bothering him the most, like the nose, and they were coming. So it's interesting, how people see themselves, right?
You have to ask, what is it that bothers you before you start going? Because
yes, so you don't.
But it's hard because some people say, well, what do you think? And it's not.
Yeah.
I really don't answer that question. I just say, really, what bothers you?
Do you sometimes turn down a patient because you don't think it's appropriate? It's a surgery that they should do?
I do. I don't know how many of my colleagues do that, but if they just don't look right when they're coming in, you don't want to add to that. And there's a lot of people with not a lot. You have some patients who have mental problems, some psychological problems, body dysmorphic syndrome. And we're taught in our training to tell the red flag patients, and kind of get a hold on it. Especially because I do a lot of noses, there's sometimes some deep-rooted psychological issues with nose patients. In fact, they're the number one killer of doctors, male rhinoplasty patients.
Really?
Yeah. So some patients you have to just say, I'm not the right person for you. I'm sure there's someone here, but it's not me.
And you refer them to somebody you don't like?
I wouldn't say that.
No, but I mean, you don't tell them there's nothing for you, and you tell them you're not the right person for them. It's a nice way of...
Yeah. I mean, rarely. I had a 24-year-old come in for a facelift. I mean, he clearly had some psychological problems. And I just said, you don't need this,
There's nothing.
I have a psychologist that I work with very closely. I always refer patients to her.
Oh, every patient has to talk to her, or
Not
only
everyone.
when you think it's necessary?
Yeah, if I think it's necessary. And some people, I feel like, they really do have a problem, but there's really some issues going on. So maybe they could work out those issues or start to, and then we can go for the surgery when they're kind of a little more stable. And I've done that before too.
Or do you think sometimes fixing something in their face or their body can really help them even on a psychological level?
No, I do. I mean, this is my truth telling. I had my nose done when I was 16, and I lived my life.
Yeah.
and I was very confident after I had it done. I feel like it needs to get done again, but then I'll become one of those patients. But
never stop.
Just kidding. But I feel like it helped with my confidence, and that's part of the reason I became a plastic surgeon. It just changed things. I hopefully wasn't crazy before, but I think there's so many things you can do. Breast reductions in girls who have these little tiny bodies, and it's just so hard for them. And it's been shown when you reduce breasts in kind of overweight girls, they end up losing more weight afterwards because they can do what they wanted to do. Or noses in teens. I love doing noses in teens. If they're the right candidate, it's really a great thing.
So it's usually, is it like a reduction of the nose, or it's a nose that maybe not centered, or what kind of can
it
be
can
everything?
be anything. I mean, the nose just looks like a thing on your face, but it has so many different parts to it. Some of it's for breathing, some of it's for being off one side or the other, humps, tips, nostrils, everything.
I have a question for you, a concern. Is it true that the nose grows when you get older?
That's I've heard that. In theory it can, but we're taught essentially that it stops right after around 15, 16, once their growth spurt's done.
Goodness.
Ears grow, though, is the problem.
Ears?
Yeah, we do ear reduction surgery for some people. You can do fillers in the earlobe because the ears get longer. And some women are doing fat injections in their hand because...
That I believe.
Yeah.
It's true that your hands become skinny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you see sometimes on the west side, the back of the body doesn't match the front, but sometimes the hands need to match, too.
Well, that's good. It keeps you busy.
Thankfully, we have we have very reasonable patients downtown. It's really a nice group of people.
Oh, yeah.
The patients
your patients are mainly local?
Local downtown, east side, San Gabriel Valley. We get them from all over because downtown's so central now. But with the population increasing so much downtown, and we've gotten nice younger group of patients, you know.
And by the way, because we didn't say it, maybe this is Raphael Cohen-Bacry with Dr. Jennifer Cagle on Here's to Your Health, and maybe you want to give your website or your contact information. I don't know if you're accepting new patients easily all the time.
Yeah.
Very good.
Always. Always happy to see people. My website is www.drcagle.com, DRKEAGLE. It's Eagle with a K in front. And I guess my phone number?
Phone number, maybe address, so people can locate.
Sure. We're located in downtown, 213-250-1300, and we're at the Good Samaritan Medical's office building, right next to Good Samaritan Hospital.
It's on Wilshire.
Wilshire, 1245 Wilshire. It's the mirrored building on Wilshire.
And your website again is www.drcagle.com.
Correct.
And I went on your website. It's pretty interesting to get information. I was thinking if someone is considering plastic surgery, what kind of research, of course they can call you, but let's say they're too far, or what kind of thing they must be sure that their doctor has, so they go into a good plastic surgeon?
That's a great question. They should go to a board-certified plastic surgeon, and the way you'll know is we have a little star that says MOC ABMS on our website, usually.
Yes.
Or you're a member of the Society of Plastic Surgery, American Society of Plastic Surgery, and it's a little, like a ring, it's a circle. You should see those. And you should always ask. You know, there's a lot of people out here that say they're cosmetic surgeons or plastic surgeons, and you want to make sure it's a board-certified plastic surgeon. Board-certified cosmetic surgeons is different. It's usually sometimes it's even a weekend course, but it's a very short
Oh, really?
fellowship.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so board certified in plastic
Plastic
surgery
surgeon,
is a good way to go, safe way to go.
Yeah, the website, the American Society of Plastic Surgery website, it has referrals from there. You can look at people on that.
And you on it, I guess.
Hopefully. I haven't checked lately. Yeah, plasticsurgery.org, and it has a lot of great videos. I post those sometimes on my Facebook page. It's nice. Just gives an overview of the procedures, questions. It's a nice little. It's very good for educating patients, because we're all about the educated patient.
Yes. So they know.
Not the overeducated that's so worried, but the educated patient.
Dr. Jennifer Cagle, thank you so much. Give us your phone number again.
Sure, it's 213-250-1300.
It was great talking to you.
Thank you so much, Raphael.
And maybe you'll come back on the show and tell us more about what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you after those important messages.
The American Heart Association's Heart Walk is coming. Bring your family, bring your friends, bring your coworkers. Help yourself and those around you to live longer, healthier lives. Form a team today and walk to help the American Heart Association defeat heart disease and stroke, two of the nation's leading killers. For more information, visit heartwalk.org.
Josh Lane and Dr. Hans Kugler of Here's to Your Health, in conjunction with A4M, the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, invite you to attend the 21st Annual World Congress on Anti-Aging Medicine, December 12th through 15th at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas. Check it out at worldhealth.net. That's worldhealth, one word, .net. And while you're there, sign up for the free longevity newsletter. Just look for the bouncing red ball. At worldhealth.net, also print out a page about the Las Vegas Congress and pass it along to your doctors. More than 3,500 healthcare professionals will convene at the Las Vegas Congress, where they will teach and demonstrate with hundreds of exhibitors about every anti-aging modality. Be sure to attend the World Congress on Anti-Aging Medicine, December 12th through 15th at the Venetian Hotel in Las Vegas. presented by the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. Visit worldhealth.net for more details. The 21st Annual Congress on Anti-Aging Medicine, proud sponsors of Here's to Your Health with Josh Lane and LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
Hey everybody, it's your man Sabir Bey back on your airwaves, inviting you to join us every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Sabir Bey Show, discussing history, law, and hip-hop. Every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, the Sabir Bey Show, exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You also can catch us on iTunes Radio and R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch us and listen directly at LATalkLive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hey, y'all.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live broadcast network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My co-host, RaphaeleCohen-Bacry, registered pharmacist and educator for boron homeopathic medicines. We're now doing Raphael's monthly boron spot.
Yes.
Raphael, welcome to Here's to Your Health.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you again.
It was fun having that plastic surgeon, Dr. Jennifer Cagle, on. Is that how you pronounce the name? Cagle?
Yes, yes.
She was a lot of interesting things to say. So it's kind of December now. What are the important ideas for homeopathy this month?
All right. So, we just had Thanksgiving and we're heading up towards Christmas and a lot of holidays. So chances are we're going to eat a little bit too much or too often or sometimes, or both, or sometimes just not the right food for us. Right. Even if we're careful, but that's what we're supposed to do, right? To enjoy and
I guess so. Yes. Okay.
So I'm not here to tell you should not, but there are things you can do, so you can keep healthy, because the problem is digestion is very important for human beings, and if you have problems with your digestion, there are consequences. You become weakened and more susceptible to becoming ill. With the weather, that's definitely colder now. Yes. And you're tired. It's the end of the year. Maybe you're not getting the sleep you should get. You stop your exercising routine. So a lot of things that make you more vulnerable. So that's why I wanted to help people with their digestion. And homeopathy is just great. It's a great help for those little issues, and they don't have all those side effects and or those interaction that you might get with what we used to what we call the conventional medicine. So, and there's one that's really very interesting. We probably talked about it before on the show. It's called Nux vomica. And it's what we call one of our single medicines. It's like arnica. It's only one medicine, and Nux vomica is also one medicine. And it comes from the poison nut, which is a seed.
Poison nut.
Poison nut. Okay. Yes, and it's a seed that's poisonous, obviously. But once it goes through our manufacturing process. And it's made into a homeopathic medicine. You can use it really with no concern, and it's very gentle, no side effects. So it's really something you should have also, along with your arnica and your calendula. You should have that in your medicine cabinet, especially if you tend to overindulge a little bit too much, or if you're a coffee drinker, if you drink a lot of coffee, or if you drink too much alcohol, or if you just don't handle alcohol very well, that's a great medicine to have to help you with all.
So Nux vomica helps me if I overeat, if I drink too much coffee, if I drink alcohol.
Yeah, we also have another medicine that I'm going to explain later, but you can have a lot of problems with your digestion, not necessarily because you eat too much and too rich. It might be something like an allergy but Nux vomica is really for the person who overeat and eat rich food or very fatty food, a lot of sugar. That's very typical of that kind of indigestion. That's why it's great for the holidays.
Okay.
And that's a medicine you can take at any time. You can even take it a little bit before, if you know you're going to have a big dinner, or you're going to go to a party and have one too many drinks. That's a good medicine to take before. So
how much before?
So let's say you're going to dinner before you leave your house, or I would say an hour before. It's not too important, but if it's in your system, it's going to work better. That's the only reason why I say take it before. It's not going to prevent the hangover. It's just going to help you recover better.
Oh, now, I noticed on these homeopathic remedies from boron that some of them are white tabs that I take 2 at a time and dissolve in my tongue, and some are little tiny white tabs, little tiny things. So how does the Nux vomica come?
Excellent. The Nux vomica comes in little pellets. This is just a packaging because it's a very popular item. We have that offer, buy 2 get 1 free. That's why it
buy
comes
2
in
get
a
1
box.
free of Nux vomica. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you're going to use it, you're going to give it to your friends.
So
at the party.
are there 100 tablets in there?
80.
80.
Approximately 80 pellets. This is the traditional form for homeopathic medicine. You need to remove.
And homeopathic medicine has been around for at least 200 years.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a German.
It was invented, developed by a Hahnemann, who was here we are, German physician. Yes, definitely. So it's nothing new. It's
so
not
the little
new.
tiny, and they're about 80 in there. Okay, fine.
And that's one of the medicines.
Now, if I was to use those, let's say I just gone out to dinner, and I ate a lot of turkey, and coffee, and a little wine or something,
and sweets,
and then how many of those do I take? Little tiny ones.
Okay, so if you knew you were going to have a big dinner and you took 5 pellets before, that's even better. But if you didn't, that's fine. You take 5 pellets when you come back, or I would carry that with me. And 5 pellets when you go to bed. And same thing if you drank too much. And then the next morning, if you still feel a little bit nauseous or a little bit tired, you can take 5 more pellets. And with homeopathy, you're not going to overdose or anything. Right. So you basically take it as you need it.
All right. So let me just recap
the protocol.
If I am going to go to dinner, I'm going to eat a lot. I might take 5 an hour before I go to dinner. Then when I come home from the dinner, I take 5, and then I go to bed and take another 5. And
in the morning, the next morning you can take 5.
So I don't need to do it more than 3 times a day.
It's although homeopathic medicines are very diluted medicine, they're harmless, but they're very powerful. So you don't need to take. It's not the more the merrier. You just take it when you need it. What it's going to do, it's going to speed up the digestion. So it's going to help you eliminate quicker.
Oh, that seems important.
Gotcha. Exactly. So again, it works naturally with your body. It's not something that's going to, counteract some, any problems you're having. It just helps you to recover quicker.
And this is called Nux vomica.
Nux vomica.
Okay, so now at this juncture, please once again tell me, how are these homeopathic medicines regulated in the United States?
Yes, and thank you for emphasizing medicines. So they are regulated by the FDA as drugs. So they're not part of the vitamins or the supplements. They're in the medicine category. So that's why we have a lot of requirements to comply with, FDA requirements. It's very scrutinized. We have a lot of control steps that we have to go through. Most of our medicines are made in France, but they were approved by FDA to come to the States too. So yes, those are medicines, definitely. And we treat them like medicine, but they just have that additional benefit that they don't cause side effects or interaction.
Now on the Nux vomica, let's say I swallow the entire bottle of 80 tabs at one time. what happens is I just really wasted money, right?
Yes.
I wasted money,
Yes.
but I can't hurt myself. I just was dumb, but I can't hurt myself.
You cannot
Right.
hurt yourself, but you're not going to get a better benefit by taking more. That's
Okay.
That's true. Yes, and that's also good to know if a kid does it. Because it's sweet, so they can like it too much and
Sure.
maybe take too. Well, they shouldn't have access to your medicines anyway. But if it happens and they swallow the whole tube, nothing's going to happen. You just need to get a new one.
What else can I use for digestion besides Nux vomica?
So there are a lot of medicine that you can use, but I would say Nux vomica is definitely the most popular one and the best for the holiday season. Again, because that's when we're going to eat a lot of fatty food and a lot of sweets. And by the way, if people want to be careful with high fructose corn syrup, that would be great if they could bake. Sugar is not very good for us anyway, but high fructose corn syrup is definitely
Not a good choice.
and it's everywhere. So if you can try to bake at home and stay away, I think that would help a lot of issues we're seeing.
I think that's a good recommendation. Yeah.
Well, because it has a lot of consequences, and with it's a big topic. But stay away from too much sugar anyway. That's going to help you also not having all those digestive issues and long-term issues too. So the other medicine that I like a lot, it's called Acidil. And this is one example of what you were saying, the tablets, as opposed to the little pellets. Those are tablets, and you take 2 at a time, and you let them melt in your mouth. And all those medicine, they're really very easy to take because they don't even require water. So if, after you get out of the restaurant, or you can just, pop some pellets, you don't even need to get some water. So that's easy.
And so the idea, the water not being required does actually seem like very smart because it just makes it easier for the patient. Right.
Well, exactly. And like we were saying with Dr. Kegel, she recommends the arnica pellets. I think very often before surgery, you're not even allowed to drink anything.
Oh.
A few hours before. So, but you can still take your arnica because it's sublingual and you don't, it's
Yes, and why do the plastic surgeons recommend Arnica montana?
Well, it's because it's a very well-known medicine that reduces the swelling and the bruises.
It really reduces swelling and bruises.
It's very dramatic, like she was saying, and the reason why plastic surgeons were more interested than other surgeons, that everybody would benefit from Arnica before and after surgery, but because they work a lot on the face, that's when the bruises show. The most, so that's why they were more interested in reducing. They were trying to reduce that, the downtime anyway with other substances that don't really work as well as Arnica and are not as safe as Arnica. So that's why they really like it a lot.
So Dr. Kegel, the MD who was just on the show, let us say she was commenting on the nose job. We're doing a nose job. Okay. So if a person's going to have a nose job, I take Arnica montana before. How do I take it?
So this is what recommend. There are several protocols, but from what we've seen, and we've been working with plastic surgeons for years, have been doing that for 10 years. So we were able to compare, and it seems that 2 days, starting 2 days prior.
2 days prior.
It's plenty. It's enough. Some people say a week before. We don't see a very big difference. So 2 days is good, knowing that a lot of people are not going to do 2 days anyway. So it's better to be safe and say 2 days. So it's going to always be 5 pellets and 3 times a day.
Okay.
So you start 2 days before the procedure, you get your procedure, and then as soon as you can, you carry on 5 pellets 3 times a day. And again, when you don't have symptoms anymore, you don't have signs, you don't have bruises, you can stop the Arnica. And some people bruise more, so they might need to take it longer. And some people have, or depending on the procedure or the doctor, some physicians are better and get less bruises anyway. So that's how you take it. And you can also, after the procedure, you can also put some Arnica gel or Arnica cream on the actual bruises or swelling if there are some.
And that speeds it up?
Yeah, using both together is the best way. to speed up the recovery.
Now, I know you've mentioned to me when we've chatted about arnica in the past that some of the soccer teams, the European teams, that they kind of use arnica. It's like everybody uses it. It's kind of like everybody just uses it.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, because like all the homeopathic medicines, they're non-doping, no side effect, no interaction. So that's one of the few medicines athletes can take, because they don't want to have any substance, that are not authorized. So that's the only thing they can take, basically, and it works fast.
How fast, by the way?
Within minutes. Yeah, I mean, unless something is broken, obviously. Right. But yeah, it really helps with reducing the swelling, and they can take it, again, no water, so they can just pop a few pellets under their tongue, and they're back on the field. So it's a very common medicine for us. Yes, a soccer team. I think here we have also baseball teams, basketball teams who are using it, because once you've seen how remember Dr. Carol, that's what she said. She didn't know, and then she used it and she saw the results, and people talk to each other. So that's how it became really mainstream, I think.
And for an athlete playing tennis or doing something, they hurt themselves, they hurt their ankle, their knee, their hip, their back, their elbow. How often do you put Arnica montana gel or lotion on the affected area?
A good rule would be 3 times a day. But again, you can repeat. Same thing with the pellets. I would say even more for the pellets. You can take them more often. I wouldn't be afraid of taking them every 15 minutes if you have a very swollen ankle. And of course, you do all the other stuff you should be doing, elevating the limb and the ice, and, seeing your physician for X-ray and everything. But it doesn't prevent you from taking your arnica every 15 minutes at the beginning, for the first hour, for example. And then when you see the symptoms are, lessen, you can decrease the intake. That's how it works. It's a little bit different from other medicines when you just have to stick to the prescription. Mm-hmm. Here you can adapt. You can adapt to what you're experiencing. I use it after dental work, even dental cleaning, because sometimes it gets sore.
Oh, you put it on your gums?
No, I just take it afterwards.
Oh, you take the tabs?
Yes, I take the pellets.
That actually helps you after dental work?
A lot, yes. Oh. Yeah, for all the soreness, sometimes it's a little bit inflamed. It can even bleed a little bit, and that really works well. Or tooth extraction, obviously. Every time there's a trauma, you can think arnica. It's really, that's why we should all have it in our purse, in the car. I have one too in my car just in case.
By way of perspective, is Arnica montana the most widely used homeopathic medicine worldwide?
Worldwide, probably. I know here Oscillo in the U.S.
That's a product, Oscillo.
Yes,
but it's a category.
It's also a generic.
Okay.
Yes. So I would say here I know oscillococcinum is more widely used.
And pronounce that once again.
Oscillococcinum.
That's for colds and flu?
Yes. Mm-hmm. For flu-like symptoms. That's also something you should have for the holiday season, because again, you're gonna get more vulnerable. You're gonna hug people. You're gonna be more exposed, and this is the flu season. So definitely oscillococcinum. Carry it with you as soon as you feel the first chills, or like you're coming down with something. It doesn't have to be the flu. It can be something that's very close. You take one dose under your tongue, and nib it in the bud, and you're good to go. You can go back to the party. And
I've asked you this question before, because I think it's an important question for the viewers. Mm-hmm. What is the difference between the cold calm you have mm-hmm. and the Oscillo you have? And for me, also, once again, tell me, what's the difference between a cold and the flu, and how can I really tell what I have?
No, I'm glad you're asking, because this is a little bit confusing for everybody. And when you're sick, you tend to take everything mm-hmm. Just to get better. Right. So I would say, first of all, it's not pleasant to have the flu or the cold, but you want to avoid the flu more. You can still function with the cold. It's difficult. You're miserable. Maybe if you can stay home, that's much better, because you're not going to spread to other people, but sometimes you can't, so you're able to function with the cold. The flu, no, you usually you stay home and you cannot move. But it happens that the very beginning of the flu or the beginning of a strong cold, that can be very similar. The symptoms can be very close. But usually you're able to discern because, again, the flu comes very suddenly. Usually, sometimes you wake up and that's it. You have it. And it's much more. It's much more dramatic. You have fever. You can have fever with the cold, but usually the fever with the flu is higher. You have those body aches that you usually don't get with the cold. In both cases, you probably gonna have like sore throat and nose symptoms, headaches. I would say it's more at the beginning of the flu. You're gonna get headaches maybe later on with the cold because you're all stuffed up. That's how I would differentiate. But in any case, if you're not sure, because again you have the flu, but you also have those flu-like symptoms that are caused by viruses that are not the necessarily the flu virus, but very close. So if you're not sure and you just feel you're gonna get sick, just take Oscillo. You feel it because you're getting cold and you're starting to have some symptoms. So you take oscillococcinum, and then you see it might stop there, very very likely if you take it really early on, and then you see how it evolves, and if it goes to the cold, that you switch to cold calm. But again, the great thing is that you can use both in combination, so it's not a problem if you're taking one and the other right after it. You can take both actually.
And when let's say I'm sick, I got a cold, and or flu, so the Oscillo, that comes in tablets.
It comes in tablets.
So
yes,
it
also comes in pellets actually, but
does?
this we promoting more for children, but it comes in both. Yes. Mm.
So if I was sick with a cold
Mhm.
or flu, I take 2 tablets 3 times a day.
Yes, or more.
Right,
sometimes the first hour when you have all those sneezing and the runny nose, or you can take 2 tablets every 15 minutes.
I can.
You can, and you're going to see your symptoms are going to really decrease, and that's when you can go back to 2 tablets 3 times a day, and then you stop. You don't
And
have
so
to.
if I have a flu and I'm sick, if I take the Oscillo, I'll be less sick and for less long.
Oh, definitely. Yes, it shortened the duration, decreased the severity of the symptoms. And again, if you take it early on, you might get rid of it. So, and that's what you want.
Or theoretically, if you catch it early, you could just knock it right out.
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes it needs two doses or 3 doses. It really depends how severe it is and how early you take it. That's why I always say have it with you. Don't wait until you go home at night. Have it in the house, because when you getting down with the flu, the last thing you want to do is have to drive to the pharmacy and buy some. You want to stay home and take care of yourself as soon as possible. Or if someone is sick in the family, you want to treat that as soon as possible. So always good to have it with you, I would say. If you're traveling, that's why I brought it today too, because you're going to take the plane to visit the family. It's tiring. You get a lot of exposure to viruses. Your neighbor is sneezing. The air is not the cleanest thing on the plane. So take one Oscillo if you feel something is not right, and you can enjoy your vacation much better.
Yeah, that seems very prudent. Yeah. And where can I buy the boron homeopathic medicines?
All those are very common, so you're going to find them in a lot of health food stores. Right. The big chains, the Whole Foods and Sprouts. A lot of pharmacy chains also have those. The Acetylil, maybe I would say, maybe Whole Food is a good place to find it. Yes, and that's something you're going to use for. It's not necessarily, the Acetylil is not necessarily for overindulging. It's also for acid reflux, bloating. So it's an interesting combination of 4 medicines. It has Nux vomica in it, but it has 3 other medicines that are going to target the bloating, the acid indigestion, the painful stomach. So it's an interesting medicine, quite powerful.
And the Nux Vomica, is that your first and, in your opinion, most important recommendation for dealing with a hangover from alcohol?
Yes.
Nux Vomica.
Yes. Yeah, we're making fun of it, actually, because that's what we put on the packaging now, hangover.
And you're allowed to make that claim once again. You can.
Well, I
make that
guess. No, we are. But not that.
Because I see all sorts of little dopey products around. In my mind, they're dopey for hangover, and I think, well, okay, it has a little vitamin C, it has B complex vitamins, and those are good. I'm not making fun of those, but I thought, I'm surprised they could get away with that.
Yes.
I'm not sure they can, actually. But
yeah. But yeah, this Nux Vomica is different. Again, it helps you to eliminate quicker. It's not that we encourage drinking, obviously, but if you do drink too much, or like me, I don't handle. I cannot, after one glass, I don't feel right. I don't feel good. I feel nauseous. So that I can use Nux Vomica for that reason, just to eliminate
alcohol is ethanol, isn't it? And ethanol is a cardiotoxin. So we're making light banter here about alcohol, but really alcohol, what we commonly call a hangover, is you feel sick because you drank poison.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, alcohol's ethanol. So I actually don't drink because I think it's a bad idea, health-wise, not morally, health-wise.
Yes. Yeah.
So when you have a hangover, when you have a headache, etc., because, you did something kind of foolish, and the body's saying, what did you do?
Yeah, but it's a personal. Some people think it's worth it.
Right.
I don't really see the benefit for me, but some people enjoy it. In France, we love wine, so. But it's. I think
we love wine in the United States too. Everyone, I guess, drinks wine, but
yeah, it's all about quantity.
It does really slow you down.
Yes. Yeah, that's. I don't feel right, but for some people, it's it makes them more relaxed, and they can be more. Enjoy the evening better. So
well, that's true, I guess. Yeah, they like to say it's a social bridge.
Yeah, right. I guess.
When you have a hangover, how long does that usually last?
I never had one. I never had one. I'm sorry.
Just in general, kind of. Well, I'm asking you as a pharmacist. Is it 2 or 3 days that you have a hangover? 1 day?
Really? I thought it was 1 day.
No, I'm asking you. You're the pharmacist.
Depends. It depends if they drink again. If it's several days of drinking. I don't know. I would say the next morning you really feel bad, and then it gets a little bit better, I guess.
Okay. What else should I have in my medicine chest for the holidays besides the Nux Vomica and Arnica if I'm drunk and fall over something? I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. The Arnica Montana, rather.
The Arnica Montana. Last time we talked about everything that's related to stress.
Mm-hmm.
Some people get really stressed during the holiday, which is a shame. You should not, but that's true. If you have a lot of people, if you have to entertain a lot of people, that can be a lot of work. Or also it's the end of the year, and some people, have to meet goals at work. So it can be stressful. So I didn't bring it today, but we talked about Sedalia. So it's for stress, to stay relaxed, but still to stay alert. So you can function and you can be, you can perform well in your job, but you're more relaxed. Right. So it helps you function better. That's definitely one you should have. You might want also the quietude, which is to help you sleep. Because again, your sleep pattern might be very disturbed during all those, either because you're traveling or because you don't sleep enough, or because you ate too much and it's hard to fall asleep. So quietude also is a good medicine. There are so many options, but that's what is so great with homeopathic medicines, because there's almost a solution to everything you might experience. But you have those medicines that are available at the drugstore, the health food store. That's also already a lot of things you can do. But if you really want to get a good homeopathic treatment, you might want to seek a physician that has been trained in homeopathy. You can solve a lot of even chronic issues that you've been suffering from for years, and there's a solution.
Well, that sounds good. We've been speaking with RaphaeleCohen-Bacry, pharmacist, educator for boron homeopathic medicines. I'm your other co-host Josh Lane. You've been listening to Here's to Your Health. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. You're tuned in to LA Talk Live, where we're more than just talk.